Chapter 2071. The power of space enveloped the three of them. After a series of spatial fluctuations, Yang Hongwu and the other two appeared in a new space. As soon as they walked out, they felt an intense chill. The entire space was a vast expanse of whiteness. This made them feel extremely cold. Yang Hongwu couldn't help but think of the ice domain. However, this was the snowy highland and it was covered in snow all year round. This was very normal. This space was filled with a special kind of extreme cold energy. This energy seemed to be the key to the existence of the snowy highland. It's actually an extreme cold spiritual vein. Yang Hongwu took a deep breath. The quality of this spiritual vein was extremely high. It wasn't any weaker than the origin of the eternal divine domain. Although it wasn't as strong as the other eternal divine domains, it was able to form an independent space. Although it was one of the 13 divine domains, it was still extremely astonishing. You must not have any ideas about this extreme cold spiritual vein. When Zi Xintong saw Yang Hongwu's reaction, she seemed to have guessed what he was thinking. She opened her mouth and said, "This place is extremely cold. It's a place left behind by an ancient strong cultivator. This place was left behind for his clansmen. There's no problem for outsiders to move about in the Shuayu Highland. However, if anyone dares to have any ideas about the spiritual vein, they will die. That ancient strong cultivator left behind a terrifying force in the origin of the spiritual vein in order to protect this space. Once this space is threatened, that force will explode and the entire space of the Shuayu Highland will collapse. Everyone will be annihilated." Yang Hongwu's voice was filled with shock and fear. His voice was filled with shock and fear. The descendants of that ancient expert will be sent into the endless void. It's extremely terrifying. Yang Hongwu was skeptical after hearing Zi Xintong's words. If that was the case, then the current divine domain was indeed too unfamiliar to Yang Hongwu. The common people divine domain, the ice divine domain, and so on were all within these spatial continents. There were countless secrets hidden in these divine domains. It was even possible that there were peerless experts in each of these divine domains. The stronger one was, the more one knew, the weaker one felt. Don't worry, I don't have such thoughts. It's impossible for me to provoke those terrifying existences. Yang Hongwu took a deep breath and said, "To me, finding Qiu Shuang and the others is my greatest wish. I don't care about anything else." Ever since he had transmigrated from Earth to this strange world of cultivation, Yang Hongwu had experienced far too much. Now that he thought about it, he felt like he had just experienced a dream. Now, he had many wives and concubines, and he even had a child. Everything was so perfect. As long as he could find his woman, reunite with his family, and find a way to return to Earth, then everything would be perfect. Is that really what you think? Zi Xintong was surprised when she heard Yang Hongwu's words. She didn't expect that Yang Hongwu would be so unambitious. A martial arts genius like Yang Hongwu was very rare. However, a martial arts genius like him was even more rare. It was as rare as phoenix feathers and water chestnuts. It could be said that there were almost none. If what Yang Hongwu said was true, then he could be considered a very special existence in the cultivation world. It was very rare for a peerless cultivation genius to give up his own cultivation path for love. However, for a woman, such a man was an excellent choice for a husband. Zi Xintong was a little moved. She looked at Yang Hongwu with a strange expression. However, it was only for a moment. Zi Xintong was no longer a little girl who had not seen the world. She was a peerless expert who had awakened the memories of her previous life. How could a mere love bind her? For her, martial arts was the most important thing. Everything else had to be put aside. Perhaps one day, when she got what she wanted, she could consider becoming Yang Hongwu's woman. Of course, at this moment, Yang Hongwu didn't know what Zi Xintong was thinking. For him, this wasn't a good thing. After all, he already had enough women. Therefore, for women, especially beautiful women, he had always been distant from them. However, because of his special physique, he was fatally attractive to women. Therefore, women who had been in contact with him for a long time would unknowingly be attracted to him. Is the pursuit of human love more important than the pursuit of the peerless martial arts? In my opinion, how can love compare to the peerless martial arts? Zi Xintong looked at Yan Hanwu and asked. She wanted to see how Yan Hanwu would answer at this moment. She wanted to see if what he said was true. At this moment, Hong Qiao also looked at Yan Hanwu. She knew in her heart that they were very important to Yan Hanwu. However, she still wanted to hear how important they were to Yan Hanwu. She wanted to hear it from Yan Hongwu's mouth. She knew that their position in Yan Hongwu's heart was more important than the martial arts they cultivated. There were two reasons why Yan Hongwu crazily increased his cultivation base and cultivated. One of them was to better protect them. The other reason was that Yan Hongwu wanted to return to his hometown, that blue planet, that special world. In fact, Hong Qiao and the other women also wanted to see what Yan Hongwu's hometown was like. They wanted to see what kind of parents could raise such a powerful and outstanding man. It was also their wish to see their parents-in-law. Unfortunately, Yan Hongwu didn't mention much about his hometown and his real family. To others, these matters were incomparably confidential. He had only mentioned a little to his own woman. After all, he was a soul transmigrator. In fact, Yan Hongwu only found out later that he didn't directly possess the third son of the Heaven's Pride King in the ancient desolate continent's Golden Dragon City. In fact, his soul had already transmigrated from the beginning. However, after Yuji broke his pure yang body, his original memories truly awakened. I don't know what love is, but to me, Qiao and the others are like my life. They are an inseparable part of my life. Without them, my life is meaningless. They are the most important to me. Qiao and the others are like my life. I am willing to give up everything for them. Not to mention the so-called supreme martial arts, I am willing to give up my life. Yan Hongwu said firmly. What an infatuated man. Even I am a little moved. At this moment, Zi Xintong was a little envious. She could see that Yan Hongwu wasn't lying. He was really willing to give up everything he had now for Hong Qiao and the others. Even his life. Don't. Hearing Zi Xintong's words, Yan Hongwu hurriedly interjected, You are the high and mighty devil princess. Zi Xintong's face immediately darkened. She stared at Yan Hongwu and said angrily, If you want to talk about the Nine Heavens Divine Dragon technique with more like-minded people, follow excellent reading literature on WeChat. Talk about life, find friends. Chapter 2072. No. That's not what I meant. Yan Hongwu smiled bitterly. He was really out of his mind. He actually said such words, What I mean is that I am not worthy of you. After all, you are so outstanding, and a playboy like me is absolutely not worthy of you. I'm not good enough for you. That's more like it. However, if I say you're good enough, then you're good enough. As experts, they have many wives and concubines. What about you? How many women do you have? Which true expert doesn't have dozens or hundreds of women? Some even have thousands of wives. Concubines. Zi Xintong said. Compared to them, you're not a playboy. Moreover, it's natural for an expert to have many women. Hearing Zi Xintong's words, Yan Hongwu was speechless. However, this was not Earth. In this world where cultivation was the most important, it was very normal for the strong to have many women. Big Sister Xintong, don't bother with him. He's just not good with words. Hong Qiao quickly grabbed Zi Xintong's hand and said, Forget it. I'll let you off for the sake of little sister Qiao. Zi Xintong snorted. She pulled Hong Qiao's hand and walked forward. Yan Hongwu could only follow behind them. Yan Hongwu released his divine sense and scanned the surroundings to see if there were any threats. Don't worry. There's no danger around the teleportation formation in the snowy highlands. On the contrary, if you use your divine sense like this, it'll make others unhappy. Zi Xintong sensed Yang Hongwu's divine sense and said, "Thank you for the reminder." Yang Hanwu withdrew his divine sense. However, he activated his divine eye technique. Compared to his divine sense, his divine eye technique had become very powerful. One of the benefits of his divine eye technique was that it wasn't easy to be discovered. Even Dao Lord experts wouldn't be exposed as long as he wasn't too careless. However, the range of his divine eye technique was a bit limited. Yang Hongwu's group of 3 didn't encounter any obstructions along the way. In fact, after Yang Hongwu's group exited the transportation array, no one gave Yang Hongwu's group any special treatment. There's no need to be so curious. It's normal for outsiders to appear in the teleportation formation of the Snowy Highlands. The local powerhouses of the Snowy Highlands don't care about this. Zi Xintong explained when she saw the curious look on Yang Hongwu's face. In reality, most of the people in the Snowy Highlands were not local cultivators. Most of them were from outside the Snowy Highlands. These foreign powerhouses who came to the Snowy Highlands would definitely not easily offend the native cultivators. This was because the native cultivators of the Snowy Highlands were protected by the Snowy Highlands. Once the foreign powerhouses attacked the native cultivators of the Snowy Highlands, if the cultivator caused any damage, he would be rejected and suppressed by the Snowfield Plateau. Moreover, there were also powerful existences in the Snowy Highlands. These powerful existences were almost invincible in the Snowy Highlands. Even Dao Lords would be able to fight against these powerful existences in the Snowy Highlands. Even if they were Dao Lords, they wouldn't be able to gain any advantage. However, you shouldn't attack the native cultivators of the Snowy Highlands. Although they aren't very strong, they are protected by the Snowy Highlands. If you attack them, you will be rejected and suppressed by the Snowy Highlands. Zi Xintong explained. Oh, there's such a situation? Yang Hanwu was very surprised. Could there be a heavenly Dao in the Snowy Highlands? Could it be that the heavenly Dao of the Snowy Highlands was constantly paying attention to the living beings of the Snowy Highlands? If that was the case, it would make people very curious. In fact, the special situation of the Snowy Highlands might be a deterrent to other people. However, it wasn't much of a deterrent to Yang Hanwu. He had the Dharma Eye of Annihilation, which was a very special existence that could destroy the Snowy Highlands. The Snowy Highlands was also a special plane of existence. It was also very fragile under his Dharma Eye of Annihilation. However, Yang Hanwu wouldn't take the risk. As Zi Xintong had said, there were some ancient existences in the Snowy Highlands. Yang Hanwu didn't know how strong these ancient existences were. Moreover, the Snowy Highlands were a terrifying place. A terrifying existence had left behind a place for his descendants to live. There must be a strong backup plan. He had no enmity with them, so there was no need for him to get into a conflict with the cultivators of the Snowy Highlands. Don't worry, I won't cause trouble for no reason. Yang Hanwu said, I've said it before. To me, other than things related to Qiao Qiao and the others, I don't care about anything else. As long as you don't provoke me, I won't easily make a move. Take me to Shuasong Mountain. I think you have a way, right? I hope so. Zi Xintong said. I can't find Shuasong Mountain on my own. However, there is one person in the Snowy Highlands who can find it. Who is it? Yang Hanwu asked. I'll take you there now. However, that person's character is very strange. Whether or not he can help you will depend on your ability. Zi Xintong looked at Yang Hanwu and said. Although I know that person, he won't listen to me. As long as you take me there, I will take care of everything else. Yang Hanwu said. Come with me. Zi Xintong said and increased her speed. Yang Hanwu and Hong Qiao Qiao looked at each other and followed her. After flying for about an hour, Yang Hanwu and the other 2 arrived in front of a huge waterfall with surging water. This waterfall was very spectacular, and the most shocking thing was that the water flow of this waterfall didn't flow downwards, but upwards. Seeing this scene, Yang Hanwu and Hong Qiao Qiao were extremely shocked. Water flowed downwards. This was the law of nature. However, everything was reversed here. The waterfall was flowing upwards. The rumbling sound of the water was like thunder. The scene before their eyes gave the two of them a huge shock. Moreover, Yang Hanwu could clearly sense that there were no special formations or restrictions in this place. How is it? Are you surprised? Zi Xintong couldn't help smiling when she saw Yang Hanwu and Hong Qiaoqiao's shocked expressions. When I first came here, I was just like you. I was extremely shocked. This place simply violates the laws of the Grand Tao. The river flows backwards, time reverses. This place is very special and mysterious. The master of this place is called the Venerable Tao Defiant. He's a very special existence. His means are unimaginable and his strength is also extremely great. He is very powerful and is very powerful. He is very powerful and is very powerful. He is the most mysterious and special existence in the snowy highlands. Yang Hanwu took a deep breath and said slowly. Mobile users, please browse. If you want to chat about the Nine Heavens Divine Dragon technique with more like-minded people, please follow me on WeChat. Chat about life, find a confidant. Chapter 2073. How did he do it? Yang Hanwu looked at the scene before him. He really hadn't expected this place to be such a miraculous place. He couldn't sense any fluctuations of formations or restrictions here at all. It was as if everything here was the heavens themselves. It was naturally formed, but all of this went against the power of the laws of nature. This is because of the venerated Tao Defiant. The laws he cultivates are extremely special. This space has become like this because of his existence. Zi Xintong said, let's go. I'll take you to see this extraordinary person. Zi Xintong walked in front. As soon as they approached the waterfall opened up a curtain of water. He already knows we're here. Let's go in. Yang Hanwu followed Zi Xintong into the waterfall. Yang Hanwu couldn't help but think of the water curtain cave of Mount Huagua. However, the water curtain cave was different from this one. This place was much more miraculous than the water curtain cave. Not to mention the reverse flow of water, just the spiritual energy here wasn't something the water curtain cave could compare to. After all, the God domain wasn't something the earth immortal world could compare to. This was a high-level plane, so one could imagine how great the gap was. After passing through the curtain of water, a completely different scene greeted them. This was a vast space filled with towering mountains. Immortal spiritual energy lingered in the air, and all sorts of cranes danced in the air. Of course, some of these cranes were extremely powerful. They were actually comparable to Emperor Realm cultivators. It was even to the extent that some of these beasts were comparable to Ruler Realm experts. On top of the Immortal Mountain, there was an ancient palace. This palace was extremely majestic and gave off an unparalleled pressure. The Tao Defiant Palace. Yang Hanwu saw 3 simple and profound characters on top of the palace from afar. It was the palace's name. Not just anyone dared to use the words Tao Defiant. The experts in this palace naturally weren't ordinary since they dared to call themselves venerated Tao Defiants. That was a taboo. If they weren't strong enough, they definitely wouldn't dare to be so presumptuous and use such a title. Tao Defiant, was too presumptuous. The heavenly Tao was fine, but the grand Tao was formless and incomparably powerful. All the worlds in the universe were under the control of the grand Tao. Daring to call yourself a Tao Defiant was simply disgraceful. This kind of person was too arrogant. At the very least, Yang Hanwu himself would absolutely not dare to use the words Tao Defying as his title. This person is so domineering, daring to call himself a Tao Defiant. How admirable! Yang Hanwu sighed with emotion. In the beginning, he thought that the title of Exalt Tao Defiant had been given to him by someone else, and the Exalt Tao Defiant probably wouldn't call himself that. Only after entering the palace did he realize that this title was probably self-imposed. Self-conferred titles and titles given by others were different. It didn't matter if one didn't acknowledge a title given by others. However, if one acknowledged or even self-conferred a title, it was different. One would have to bear the karma that came with the title. Of course, venerated Tao Defiants are extremely mysterious, and their strength is boundless. However, you don't have to worry. The venerated Tao Defiant in this palace is only a clone of the Tao Defiant. Even so, its strength is extremely terrifying, and it's comparable to a Tao Lord. That's why the common life divine domain is the foundation of the entire divine domain. There are all sorts of mysterious and powerful existences there, and the venerated Tao Defiants are one of them. Of course, Taoist Xuesong whom you're looking for is one of them as well. However, his strength is inferior to the venerated Tao Defiants. The venerated Tao Defiants are the truly terrifying existences. It's just a child. This obviously shows how terrifying and formidable the Exalt Tao Defiants are. Zi Xintong couldn't help but smile when she saw Yan Hanwu act in this way, and she explained to him. If that's really the case, then it's too terrifying. The divine domain has exceeded my imagination. Yang Hanwu took a deep breath. I thought I was strong enough, but now it seems like I'm just a speck of sand in the endless void. It's good that you know that. You'll never know where the end of cultivation lies. Even I don't know where the end of cultivation lies. Perhaps we're in the body of a peerless expert, or perhaps even a speck of sand. I'm just a speck of dust on his body. Zi Xintong sighed. Everyone should learn to be respectful towards martial arts. Zi Xintong paused for a moment and continued, even though this venerated Tao Defiant is only a clone, he knows much more than you can imagine. If you're able to obtain his guidance, then even just a little bit would be beneficial to you. However, he won't rashly provide guidance to others. Whether you're able to learn anything from him will depend on your own fortune. Zi Xintong's voice was filled with admiration when she spoke up to this point. Yan Hanwu was extremely surprised when he saw Zi Xintong's expression. He hadn't expected that Zi Xintong would actually reveal such a side to him. After all, not to mention the current Zi Xintong, even Zi Xintong in the lower realms would find it very difficult to reveal such a side to her. She even revealed such an expression in the lower realms. Not to mention that Zi Xintong was a Tao monarch now. She could be said to be an existence that stood at the peak of the divine domain. Besides those special existences that he didn't know about, it was probably very difficult for anyone else to be a match for Zi Xintong. She shook her head. I understand. Yang Hanwu took a deep breath and said, Venerated Tao Defiant. I really want to see the appearance and bearing of this legendary expert right away. Zi Xintong smiled as she gazed at Yang Hanwu. She didn't say anything and just walked in front of him. Yang Hanwu and Hong Qiao followed behind her. The three of them stepped into the Tao Defiant Palace. As soon as they stepped foot into the palace, it wasn't as dense as Yang Hanwu had expected. There wasn't any powerful pressure either. Instead, the palace was extremely ordinary. It was even to the extent that the decorations within the palace were extremely ordinary. It wasn't much different from the decorations in the palaces of some ordinary sects from the lower realms. Even the stone pillars, the surrounding walls, the tables, and so on and so forth weren't very different. Everything seemed so ordinary. There wasn't the slightest bit of spirituality in these items. In Yang Hongwu's imagination, any item from the cultivation palace of an unparalleled powerhouse, a legendary powerhouse, in the hands of someone else would be able to do the same. But he didn't expect that everything in front of him was too ordinary. It was just like the things that mortals used in the mortal world. Are you surprised? Zi Xintong looked at Yang Hanwu and said, Isn't the contrast with the outside world very great? Is it hard to believe? Yang Hanwu nodded and said, Indeed. If you want to talk about the Nine Heavens Divine Dragon technique with more like-minded people, you can follow excellent literature on WeChat. Talk about life, find confidence. Chapter 2074. After that, the three of them arrived at a small room. The room was filled with all sorts of books, and it was simple and fragrant. At a table, Yang Hanwu was shocked to see a person sitting before a table because he noticed that he was actually unable to see the person's appearance clearly. No matter what Yang Hanwu did, he even wanted to utilize his eye technique to try and see the person's appearance clearly. No! However, Yan Hanwu restrained himself in the end. He was very clearly aware that it wasn't that he couldn't see the person's appearance clearly, and the person was doing it intentionally. Obviously, the person didn't want Yan Hanwu to see the person's appearance clearly and didn't want Yan Hanwu to know the person's true situation. Moreover, Yan Hanwu was able to discern that the person's strength was truly formidable, inconceivably formidable. At the very least, Yan Hanwu felt that it was impossible for the person above the Dao monarch realm to conceal the person's identity even if the person wanted to, because Yan Hanwu was unable to see the person's appearance clearly. However, the Exalt Dao Defiance just happened to be able to accomplish that. After all, it was only a clone of the Exalt Dao Defiance, yet a clone was already so terrifying. So, how formidable and terrifying would the Exalt Dao Defiance true body be? It was absolutely unimaginable. Until now. Now it would seem like the Exalt Dao Defiance were the most terrifying person he'd ever met. Senior. Zi Xintong bowed respectfully when she saw the Exalt Dao Defiance. Please have a seat. The Exalt Dao Defiance voice resounded. It was impossible to discern the gender of the Exalt Dao Defiance, but his voice carried a special force. It was a special force that made others feel convinced, and they couldn't help but sit down along with his voice. Why have all of you come here? The Exalt Dao Defiance voice resounded, and it was like a spring breeze. Zi Xintong said, Senior, we're here to ask about a person. With the strength you possess, it isn't difficult for you to obtain information about a single person on snowy highlands. However, you won't be able to find me because there are only 2 people. If I'm not wrong, then the person you're looking for is Daoist Xuesong, right? Said the Exalt Dao Defiance. Senior, your foresight is miraculous. Yes, the person we're looking for is Daoist Xuesong, said Zi Xintong. Why are you looking for Daoist Xuesong? The Exalt Dao Defiant continued, you should be clearly aware of my character. Perhaps I can help all of you if you're able to provide an answer that satisfies me. But if I'm not satisfied, then I'm sorry. Not only will all of you be unable to obtain my help, you'll even have to leave something behind. May I know what can satisfy Senior? Zi Xintong asked. Let him stay with me. The Exalt Dao Defiance said, he's the most outstanding genius I've ever seen. I need a disciple to inherit my mantle and leave behind my inheritance. He's the most suitable person. Zi Xintong was extremely surprised when she heard this. She glanced at the Exalt Dao Defiance before glancing at Yan Hanwu. She knew that Yan Hongwu's natural talent was absolutely beyond doubt. Even though Zi Tian's natural talent was extremely terrifying as well, she was very clearly aware that Zi Tian's natural talent had come from the strength he possessed during his last lifetime. He'd relied on the formidable strength he possessed during his last lifetime to allow his strength to become so terrifying. However, Yang Hanwu was even more heaven-defying than Zi Tian. Yang Hongwu's current strength and cultivation wasn't because Yang Hanwu had relied on the strength he possessed during his last lifetime, and it was because he'd truly cultivated. For example, sure enough, if it was purely based on cultivation, then Yang Hongwu's strength was much stronger than Zi Tian. Zi Xintong Xiantong was able to discern that there was an enormous force within Yang Hongwu's body as well. This enormous force was sealed, and it was probably Yang Hongwu's strength from his last lifetime. It hadn't been activated yet, and if Yang Hanwu were to refine and absorb it or inherit it, then Yang Hongwu's strength would definitely surpass her. Exactly because of this, if ordinary experts were to choose his successor, they would not choose him. Exactly, the power in Yang Hongwu's body was too terrifying. It was too overbearing. If it was just an ordinary inheritance, it would not be able to withstand that terrifying power. However, the Exalt Dao Defiance had actually chosen Yang Hanwu as his successor, and this was truly inconceivable to her. Senior, you're not joking, right? Zi Xintong believed that even she had noticed it, so there was no reason for the Exalt Dao Defiance to be unable to see through Yang Hongwu's situation. The Exalt Dao Defiance strength was terrifying indeed, but he might not be able to resist the domineering and terrifying force within Yang Hongwu's body. Zi Xintong estimated that the Exalt Dao Defiance might be able to suppress Yang Hongwu's true body, but it was absolutely impossible for a mere clone to resist it. "I'm naturally not joking," said the Exalt Thou Defiance. "If he's willing to accept my inheritance, then everything you want to know won't be a problem. I'm very curious. Senior, you have a myriad of choices to choose from if you're looking for a successor, but I'm merely an emperor. I believe that countless geniuses would come here if Senior were to give the word that you're looking for a successor." Yang Hanwu gazed at the Exalt Thou Defiance as he spoke. Even though he couldn't see the Exalt Thou Defiance true appearance, Yang Hanwu knew that the Exalt Thou Defiance probably didn't just want him to accept his inheritance. Especially because Yang Hanwu wouldn't easily trust someone who didn't even reveal his true appearance. If the Exalt Thou Defiance really wanted to obtain a successor, then why would the Exalt Thou Defiance hide and not do it openly? That was the fundamental reason. Of course, it couldn't be denied that the Exalt Thou Defiance had a special reason. So, there was definitely something wrong with the Exalt Thou Defiance. As for what the Exalt Thou Defiance wanted to do, Yang Hanwu wasn't very sure. However, Yang Hanwu guessed that the Exalt Thou Defiance wanted to seize his strength, seize the strength within him. "Do you know that your physique is 1 in a million? Moreover, there's a strand of formidable strength within you, and that's why I took a fancy to you. If you're able to refine and absorb this strength, then you'll be able to free me from my true body. Even though I'm only a clone of the Exalt Thou Defiance, I'm still under the control of the Exalt Thou Defiance true body. But I'm not him. I want to become a true Exalt Thou Defiance, and there are too few people who can help me break free and surpass him. However, you possess such strength." The Exalt Thou Defiance gazed at Yang Hanwu as he spoke. Yang Hanwu, Zi Xintong, and Hong Qiao were shocked when they heard this. They hadn't expected that the Exalt Thou Defiance would actually have such thoughts. It was too terrifying because it wasn't easy to break free from the Exalt Thou Defiance true body's restraints. Chapter 2075. Senior, what you said is truly too difficult. I feel that I'm unable to accomplish it. Yang Hanwu shook his head when he heard this. What a joke! It wasn't a joke. Even if he could help this Exalt Thou Defiance clone, he didn't want to take such a risk. Because regardless of whether he succeeded or failed, it wouldn't benefit Yang Hanwu at all. How formidable were the Exalt Thou Defiance? Such an expert was capable of traversing the barriers of the universe to arrive here, and it was even to the extent that he could kill from afar. It was too terrifying. Yang Hanwu was absolutely unwilling to take such a risk. No, don't undervalue yourself. The energy within you is an extremely terrifying existence. Even I would be like an ant when that energy within you erupts. This obviously shows that the energy within you is absolutely not inferior to my main body. So, you're definitely someone who can help me accomplish this. As for others, they're utterly incapable of accomplishing it. Even the strongest experts in the God domain are unable to accomplish it, said the Exalt Thou Defiant. How could he? How experienced was he? How could he be unable to discern Yang Hanwu's thoughts? He was very clearly aware that there were too few people who could help him, and it was the same for those who were willing to help him. He'd encountered people who could help him, but who would be willing to take the risk of offending his main body to help him? This was an opportunity, an extremely good opportunity. If he missed this opportunity, then he would probably be unable to escape his main body for his entire lifetime and be truly independent. Yang Hongwu gazed at the Exalt Thou Defiant and couldn't help but think of someone from all those years ago. That person wanted to escape his main body and become a truly independent person as well. He succeeded, but he failed as well. Actually, he didn't know how terrifying his main body was, and he was unable to realize that everything about him was under his main body's control. Now, the Exalt Thou Defiance clone's thoughts and arrangements were probably under the control of the Exalt Thou Defiance main body. It was a joke for a clone to escape the main body's control. Even if the main body was weakened to the limit, the clone wouldn't be able to escape the main body's control. Of course, the exception was if the clone relied on an external force, and that external force had to be far stronger than the main body. Moreover, the external force had to possess special secret techniques and divine abilities. Namely, even then, the chances of success was pitifully small. Yang Hanwu was able to discern that the Exalt Tao Defiance clone was extremely ambitious. No! Even though ambition was great, it required formidable strength to support it. Obviously, this Exalt Tao Defiant before him probably didn't possess such formidable strength. You can help me. I know what you're worried about. You're afraid of my true body. To be honest, I'm afraid of my true body as well. But you don't have to worry. This is a special space, and I paid a huge price to build the Tao Defiant Palace. Even though it seems ordinary, it's outside the myriad of worlds and isn't part of the 3,000 Grand Daos. The Exalt Tao Defiant gazed at Yang Hanwu as he spoke. While the Exalt Tao Defiant spoke, Yang Hanwu suddenly noticed that he'd lost connection with Hong Qiao and Zi Xintong. He couldn't sense their auras at all. Moreover, the space before him had changed as well. Only the Exalt Tao Defiant remained before him. Yang Hongwu's expression changed drastically. This is absolutely not a good thing. What exactly is the Exalt Tao Defiant trying to do? At this moment, Yang Hanwu was filled with regret. He slightly regretted coming to look for the Exalt Tao Defiant. After all, the Exalt Tao Defiant's strength was too terrifying. Even if it was just a clone, it wasn't an existence that he could offend right now. He wasn't afraid of the Exalt Tao Defiant, but Yang Hanwu was worried about Hong Qiao and Zi Xintong. Senior, where are Hong Qiao and the others? Yang Hanwu suppressed the flames of rage in his heart and gazed at the Exalt Tao Defiant as he spoke. There's no need to worry. They're fine. This is my Tao Defiant dimension, and it's extremely special. Others are unable to sense it. I told you that the Tao Defiant Palace has leaped out of the myriad of worlds and isn't within the 3,000 Grand Daos. This dimension is the foundation of the Tao Defiant Palace. The Exalt Tao Defiant gazed at Yang Hanwu as he spoke. I've already told you what I want, and only you can help me. Senior, you've underestimated everything. Yang Hanwu laughed bitterly and said, I presume Senior is clearly aware of how terrifying Senior's true body is, so there's naturally no need for me to explain. Senior, do you think that our strengths would be a match for Senior's true body? My cultivation is only at the Emperor realm in the end, and it's even to the extent that I haven't even attained the Overlord realm. Once we fight, I'll be a tiny ant, and a casual yawn from Senior's true body would be sufficient to blast me flying. There's no need to doubt his strength. However, he's not truly invincible. There are countless people who are stronger than him. The Exalt Tao Defiant let out a light sigh of relief and said, You're just too weak right now, and your circle is too small, so you haven't come into contact with that level. Once you arrive at that level, you'll understand that the so-called invincible experts in your eyes are nothing at all. They're just ants in the eyes of those truly terrifying experts, and it's even to the extent that my true body is no exception. On the other hand, that strand of energy within you is an existence that can resist my true body. If I'm not wrong, you should be the reincarnation of a peerless expert. Or perhaps you're a seed left behind by a peerless expert. It's even to the extent that you can be considered as a test subject. Perhaps that expert has left behind a myriad of seeds just like you in the boundless universe. Yang Hongwu's hairs stood on end when he heard this. Everyone shuddered with fear. Yang Hanwu had truly never imagined such a situation, and it seemed to be similar to those methods of cultivating venomous insects. Isn't it true that I'm just a test subject, a seed? Wait. A seed that's waiting to be harvested? If that's really the case, then what should I do? How should I escape this fate? In an instant, Yang Hanwu fell into deep thought. This is too terrifying. I've become a puppet that's being controlled and manipulated by someone. A venomous insect? That's impossible. I absolutely refuse to accept it. Yang Hanwu roared furiously while a terrifying cold glow erupted from his eyes. You can't accept it. Yes, it's the same for me. Our fates are the same, but you're even more unfortunate than me. You probably still don't know who's controlling your fate, your life, and everything about you. The Exalt Tao Defiant spoke once more. Chapter 2076. Yang Hanwu had actually guessed all of this. However, at this moment, the Exalted Tao Defiance had spoken of it in such a straightforward manner. Coupled with the Exalted Tao Defiance's special ability to bewitch him, it caused the flames of rage in Yang Hanwu's heart to be magnified without limit. It practically caused Yang Hanwu to lose all reason. However, at this instant, a strain of refreshing energy arose within Yang Hanwu's dantian. This strain of refreshing energy was like a strand of spring water in a desert, and it caused Yang Hanwu to shudder. At that instant, Yang Hanwu returned to his senses. "Senior, you really are extraordinary. I almost fell into it." Yang Hanwu spoke at this moment while the fear in his heart had risen to the extreme as he gazed at the Exalted Tao Defiance. On the other hand, Zi Xintong and Hong Qiao were seated upright not too far away from him. However, Yang Hanwu was very clearly aware that he, Zi Xintong, and Hong Qiao weren't in the same space right now. Even though he could see them, he was extremely far away from them. If Yang Hanwu didn't possess the secret technique to teleport through space, then he would be utterly unable to sense their location. At this moment, even though Yang Hanwu could see them and sense their location, Yang Hanwu was very clearly aware that it wasn't easy for him to instantly teleport to where they were. The Exalted Tao Defiance wouldn't allow him to do as he wished. Even if the Exalted Tao Defiance were only a clone right now, his strength was still there for all to see. He was truly too formidable, and he wasn't an existence that Yang Hanwu could go against right now. Unless Yang Hanwu was willing to undo the seal on the energy within him and allow it to erupt. However, Yang Hanwu didn't know what would happen if he really did that. It was his final trump card, and unless he had no other choice, Yang Hanwu would absolutely not utilize a strength that didn't belong to him. "You actually noticed it so quickly?" The Exalted Tao Defiance was extremely surprised when he saw Yang Hanwu recover from his rage so quickly because it was extremely rare. Even if it was him, if such terrifying rage was aroused within him, then it would be equivalent to arousing an inner demon within him. Any cultivator would have an inner demon within them. It wasn't a demon, it was a demon within their heart. Every single one of them had an inner demon within them. However, some had a very weak inner demon while some were very strong. In fact, it was a so-called obsession. The Exalted Tao Defiance was able to discern that the inner demon within Yang Hanwu's heart was extremely terrifying and strong. Moreover, it was an existence that couldn't be eliminated or obliterated. However, Yang just happened to be able to suppress it and awaken it with such ease and with ease. So, how could the Exalted Tao Defiance couldn't be? "Senior, what do you want?" Yang Hanwu took a deep breath, and then he gazed at the Exalted Tao Defiance and said, "I told you that you can just tell me if I can help you. However, you said that you want to sever the connection with your true body and sever that shackle. It isn't something that I can accomplish right now unless my strength has arrived at that level. However, that is absolutely not the case right now. No, only you can accomplish that right now. You won't be able to accomplish it if you're too strong." At this moment, the Exalted Tao Defiance spoke once more. His expression didn't seem like he was lying, and it puzzled Yang Hanwu. "I've become stronger, yet I still can't accomplish it. What's going on? Senior, are you sure you're not joking with me?" Yang Hanwu gazed at the Exalted Tao Defiance while he grew even more puzzled. What did the Exalted Tao Defiance mean? Joking? The Exalted Tao Defiance gazed at him and said, "You're thinking too much. I've never joked. If you're too strong, then this space of mine won't be able to completely isolate your aura. At that time, my true body will be able to sense it, and once it does, it will be able to instantly traverse the barriers between the heavens and the earth. Do you think I'll still have a chance at that time?" Yang Hanwu thought for a moment and felt that it was a fact. Moreover, if he were to become stronger, then the Exalted Tao Defiance clone would naturally be unable to suppress him. In that way, would the Exalted Tao Defiance be able to make Yang Hanwu help him? So, Yang Hanwu was clearly aware that the Exalt Dao Defiant's heart was like a mirror as well. If the Exalt Dao Defiant wanted Yang Hanwu to help him escape the restrictions of his main body, then Yang Hanwu had to be present. Moreover, it was risky as well. If that strain of energy within Yang Hanwu were to erupt, then it would be an extremely huge latent danger. That was exactly why he didn't dare to force Yang Hanwu too much. Because if he forced Yang Hanwu into a corner and caused Yang Hanwu to completely release the energy within him, then the exalted Dao Defiance would probably perish. "Senior, must you do that?" Yang Hanwu thought for a moment and said, "There's a time when having too much freedom isn't necessarily a good thing. However, in my opinion, there's no hope or future without freedom. Everyone has to pursue something, and I'm just a clone right now. How sad is it to be a clone? You're unable to understand it yourself. I don't want to be a clone forever. You'll never be able to understand all of that. Do you understand?" As he spoke these words, the exalted Dao Defiant's voice was filled with sorrow, rage, and unwillingness. Yang Hanwu laughed bitterly. "Right, I'm not him. So, I don't know how much the exalted Dao Defiance yearned for freedom or to become an independent individual right now. He really wanted to become a real person, a true exalted Dao Defiant, and not just a clone. However, it was too difficult for him to escape all of this. Actually, he didn't know that, so what if he could escape all of this? He was too insignificant before the exalted Dao Defiant's true body. Even if the exalted Dao Defiance abandoned this clone, it wouldn't affect him at all. Because this clone was nothing to the exalted Dao Defiance. It was just a strand of his thoughts, that had formed a consciousness of its own. It could be said to be insignificant to the exalted Dao Defiance. However, if this clone lost the protection and support of the exalted Dao Defiance, then he would have to face too many things, and he might not be able to endure all of them. Ignorance is bliss. These words weren't just spoken casually, and it was actually true for many people. If this clone of the exalted Dao Defiance truly obtained freedom, then he would know that the truth wasn't as he'd thought. However, Yang Hanwu was clearly aware that the exalted Dao Defiance wouldn't believe him even if he explained it clearly. If you want to chat about the 9 Heavens Divine Dragon technique with more like-minded people, follow me on WeChat. Chat about life and find friends. Chapter 2077. Actually, so what if you're able to sever the connection with your main body? Yang Hanwu sighed and said, "If your main body isn't willing to sever the connection between you and your main body, then it's absolutely easy for him to kill you." The Exalt Dao Defiant took a deep breath when he heard this. How could he not be aware of that? He just wanted to take a gamble and experience the feeling of freedom. Even if it was just for an instant, it was enough. "You won't understand." The Exalt Dao Defiant continued, "You won't understand all of this." After a short pause, the Exalt Dao Defiant gazed at Yang Hanwu and said, "I'll just ask you a single question. Do you agree to help me?" Even though he couldn't see the Exalt Dao Defiant's appearance clearly, Yang Hanwu was able to sense that the Exalt Dao Defiant was serious right now, and he would probably attack if he didn't obtain the answer he wanted. "Senior, are you threatening me?" At this moment, Yang Hanwu had found an opportunity. The reason he'd spoken so much with the Exalt Dao Defiant was for the sake of setting things up so that he would have sufficient time to teleport to where Zi Xintong and Hong Qiao were. No, it can't be considered as a threat. Of course, it's fine if you insist on taking it that way. The Exalt Dao Defiant continued, "You should be aware that I don't have a choice now. You're my last hope. If you refuse, then I'll have no choice but to use special methods. You should be aware of the consequences of refusing me." Consequences? Yang Hanwu smiled. A rift appeared in space with a single command, and then Yang Hanwu instantly flashed into the rift. A moment later, Yang Hanwu appeared once more, and he was by Hong Qiao and Zi Xintong's side. "Let's go." After that, Yang Hanwu pulled them up with him and was about to flee. Meanwhile, the Exalt Dao Defiant's formidable aura instantly locked onto them. "Your ability has surprised me. However, it's merely a surprise. You're absolutely unable to escape my grasp before you activate the strength within your body. No matter how formidable your spatial techniques are, you won't be able to accomplish that. The Exalt Thou Defiant continued, looks like you pay a lot of attention to them. Especially that woman called Hong Chao Chao. Hearing this, Yan Hongwu's eyes flashed with a cold light. Are you threatening me? I hate being threatened. Yan Hongwu stared at the Exalt Thou Defiant and said, even if you're stronger than me, so what? What I hate the most is being threatened. Looks like all of you refuse to obey me. Then, I have no choice but to do it myself. Trap. The Exalt Thou Defiant stretched out his hand and pointed forward, and then a ray of light instantly shot towards Yan Hongwu's group. Yan Hongwu's complexion changed. He pulled the two women and disappeared in an instant. However, the Exalt Thou Defiance appeared not too far away from them in the next moment. Even if he possessed all sorts of formidable abilities, he still wasn't able to kill Zi Xintong in a short period of time. Yan Hongwu was extremely surprised. The Exalt Thou Defiant, who was extremely arrogant just a moment ago, had actually become like this and was actually negotiating with Zi Xintong. Look! This Exalt Thou Defiant is much weaker than I imagined. Zi Xintong, this is our chance. At this moment, a smile curled up on the corners of Yan Hongwu's mouth, and he said, looks like our senior isn't as strong as we imagined. Yan Hongwu, you're courting death. Do you realize that? The Exalt Thou Defiance gazed at Yan Hongwu while flames of rage flickered in his eyes. He said, if you cooperate, then I can give you supreme fortune. But if you don't, then only death awaits you. Only death awaits me? Yan Hongwu laughed and gazed at the Exalt Thou Defiant as he said, what a joke. What a huge joke. Since you're aware of the formidable force within me, then you should be aware that I'm an undying existence. You are absolutely unable to kill me. Even if I want to die, it's impossible. Chapter 2078. Unexpectedly, the Exalted Thou Defiance didn't refute this. So what? Said the Exalted Thou Defiance. I know why you haven't activated that energy within you. It's because you don't want to be controlled by that energy. Because you know that you won't be you anymore once that energy awakens. At that time, you'll be no different than dead, and you won't be the current you anymore. You're thinking too much. I admit that if I fully activate that energy, then it's very likely that I'll lose control of my current body. However, that doesn't mean that my consciousness will be completely obliterated. Moreover, I don't need that energy to deal with you. I need to fully activate that energy. Yan Hongwu said to Zi Xintong, our joint forces are sufficient to kill this fellow. He probably possesses a huge amount of treasures, and will obtain enormous benefits if we're able to refine and absorb them. As he spoke, Yan Hongwu issued a command with his will and sent Hong Chao Chao into his common life world. In this way, Yan Hongwu didn't have to be distracted by Hong Chao Chao. As for Zi Xintong's strength, Yan Hongwu had no choice but to admit that Zi Xintong's strength was absolutely much stronger than his own. Your inner world is actually so formidable. No wonder you're so fearless. Zi Xintong was extremely surprised when she saw Hong Chao Chao vanish right before her eyes, but it was within her expectations. After all, if Yan Hongwu wasn't able to protect Hong Chao Chao, if Chao Chao's strength was sufficient, then Yan Hongwu wouldn't dare allow her to be in such danger. Because Zi Xintong knew how much Yan Hongwu cared about Hong Chao Chao and the other girls. The Exalted Thou Defiance were slightly surprised as well. However, it was merely a slight surprise. If Yan Hongwu was so easy to deal with, then it would be impossible for Yan Hongwu to become his target. After all, Yan Hongwu was someone who had been chosen by a supreme ancient figure. Or perhaps, Yan Hongwu was the successor of an ancient figure, so how could Yan Hongwu be weak? Even if the power in his body had not awakened, it was still very powerful. As for Yan Hongwu sending Hong Chao Chao to another world, he did not sense it at all. He was not surprised at all that Yan Hongwu had sent Hong Chao Chao to another world. It was very normal for someone at the same level of cultivation to possess a world of their own. However, he was actually unable to sense Yang Hongwu's world, and that was what truly shocked him. This was his territory, but he couldn't sense Yang Hongwu's inner world. He didn't even know how Yang Hongwu sent Hong Qiao into his inner world. It could be seen that Yang Hongwu's inner world was very powerful. The level of this world was not low, and it was very special. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to escape his senses. I'm truly surprised, but that's all. Do you really think that I'm helpless against the two of you? The Exalt Dao Defiant grunted coldly and said, both of you know nothing about strength. Cultivation doesn't represent strength. True strength depends on one's comprehension of the laws. I'll let both of you know what true strength is. As soon as he finished speaking, the Exalt Dao Defiant stretched out his hand and formed a strange seal. Everywhere the seal passed, the entire expanse of space underwent a transformation. Yang Hongwu noticed to his shock that the common people's world within him had actually undergone a transformation. The energy that erupted from the seal was actually on the verge of pulling Hong Qiao out of his common people's world. His memories from before were about to be wiped away as well. This is the energy to reverse time. How could this be possible? Yang Hongwu opened his eyes wide. The Time Dao and Space Dao were two of the most terrifying laws. However, the energy of space was far from being as terrifying as the Time Dao. Actually, if an ordinary person was able to comprehend some of the Time Dao, they would merely be able to speed up time. Perhaps they could only stop time for a short period of time. However, what the Exalt Dao Defiant was doing was extremely terrifying. He was actually able to reverse time. That was rather terrifying. Reversing time and space was the most terrifying power in the Time Dao. Those who could master this proved that their comprehension of the Time Dao had reached a pinnacle level, even if the amount of time they could reverse was very small, even if it was just a small amount of time. Even if it was just a few breaths of time or an instant, it was still rather terrifying. If one could reverse time to a few hours, a few days, or even a few years, then that person could be considered to be invincible. Common people's seal. Common people's energy. Suppress. Yang Hongwu roared furiously while the common people's seal instantly transformed into a mountain. Powerful energy erupted from it like an ancient mountain and suppressed the Time Dao Defiant's attack. It suppressed the Time Dao Defiant. You want to suppress me? Dream on. At this moment, the Exalt Dao Defiant grunted coldly while the river that was flowing in reverse surged and surged. It wasn't an ordinary river, it was the water of time, and it could cleanse all marks of time. Of course, there were conditions to this as well. Such an effect could only be achieved with the support of the laws of time. At this moment, the water of time was extremely powerful when combined with the laws of time of the Dao Defiant. It was incomparably powerful. Wherever it went, everything would be invaded by the power of time. No creature or object could resist the invasion of the power of time, unless there was a special and powerful secret method or a supreme treasure. Ordinary supreme treasures couldn't resist the invasion of time. Only those who had the ability to resist time could resist it. Only supreme treasures that could contend with the power of laws of the path of space could withstand it. Yet now, the Exalt Dao Defiant was relying on the water of time, so it was obvious how terrifying the Exalt Dao Defiant was right now. An ordinary person wouldn't be able to resist such a formidable and overbearing force. What a domineering energy of the laws of time. Yang Hongwu took a deep breath. He'd truly been caught off guard when facing such a terrifying force. However, Yang Hongwu was fearful of the Exalt Dao Defiant's strength since a long time ago. It wasn't just Yang Hongwu, even Zi Xintong was extremely surprised. The Exalt Dao Defiant's ability was truly unimaginable. That seemingly ordinary river water was actually the legendary water of time. It was truly unbelievable because the water of time wasn't an ordinary river. According to legend, this water was a river that contained the energy of time. According to legend, such a river flowed from the source of time and space. Even though the energy of time contained within the water of time was far inferior to the true river that flowed from the source of time and space, it was still extremely shocking. If one was able to refine and absorb the energy of time within the river water, then one would definitely be able to comprehend a portion of the laws of time and form a time Tao. If you want to chat about the 9 Heavens Divine Dragon technique with more like-minded people, follow me on WeChat. Chat about life and find friends. Chapter 2079. But the water of time can't do anything to me. Yang Hanwu roared as an enormous furnace appeared in midair. It was the Devour Furnace, and it was Yang Hongwu's supreme ability. It could devour and refine everything in the universe, and it could even refine supreme laws. Yet, the water of time was devoured by Yang Hongwu's enormous furnace. You're courting death, kid. The Exalt Tao Defiant was slightly stunned, and then he laughed coldly as he gazed at Yang Hongwu. His eyes were filled with ridicule. In his opinion, the water of time was extremely formidable. Even if it didn't flow from the source of time and space, it wasn't something a mere Emperor Realm cultivator could resist. But, everything wasn't as he'd imagined. The water of time had been completely devoured by Yang Hanwu into the Devour Furnace. The Devour Furnace circulated madly through the 9 Heavens Divine Dragon technique and the energy of the Divine Tree of Creation. Yang Hanwu had actually seized the energy of time within the water of time and refined it. At this moment, Yang Hanwu relied on the energy of time and the strand of spatial energy within Yang Hongwu's body to actually start to condense a strand of the laws of time. One strand, the laws of time gradually condensed into form. A terrifying pressure appeared in midair. It was the might of the heavens and the earth, and then the sound of bells and drums resounded. It was pleasing to the ear. That was the sound of the Grand Tao. That was, at this moment, a shocking change occurred throughout the heavens and the earth. Numerous lotuses descended from the sky. Flowers rained down from the sky while bells and drums resounded. That was the sign of attaining the Tao. This scene flabbergasted the Exalt Tao Defiant and Hong Qiao Qiao. It's too inconceivable. This is actually the sign of attaining the Tao. How could this be possible? How could a mere Emperor Realm cultivator possibly show signs of attaining the Tao at a time like this? Isn't this something that only happens when one breaks through into the Tao Lord realm? Impossible, my water of time, how could he possibly refine it? He's only an emperor. He's not even a sovereign. How could he possibly produce the sound of the great Tao? At this moment, the Exalt Tao Defiance had a dazed expression on his face. He didn't dare believe his eyes at all because it was too inconceivable and unbelievable. Since not only had his water of time been unable to pose any threat to Yang Hongwu, it had helped him instead. So, how could the Exalt Tao Defiance accept this? No, if he was just a clone, then even the true body of the Exalt Tao Defiant would be extremely infuriated by such a situation. Tao of Spacetime, condense. Yang Hanwu roared and condensed a spacetime great Tao in his world. Although this spacetime great Tao seemed very weak, the power it contained was very terrifying. One, he knew that a person who had truly condensed a grand Tao law would definitely not be at the Emperor level. Right now, Yang Hongwu's cultivation was still far from reaching the Tao Lord level. Dang, however, the great way of spacetime before them was only the embryonic form of a great way. Even so, it was extremely terrifying. At this moment, Yang Hongwu's cultivation and aura rose madly after the spacetime great Tao took form. The spirit energy in the surroundings was madly devoured by Yang Hongwu like a whale sucking in water. The terrifying spirit energy formed a terrifying vortex that surged madly towards Yang Hongwu, and it instantly drowned Yang Hongwu. This. Zi Xintong didn't dare believe her eyes when she witnessed this scene. At this moment, the amount of spirit energy that was surging over was truly too terrifying. Such powerful spirit energy was practically comparable to the spirit energy possessed by a god domain. But, fortunately, this was the Exalt Tao Defiant Palace. The powerful spirit energy was actually the quintessence of the Tao Defiant Palace. If it had been placed on top of the Purple Mountain, the spirit chi of the Purple Mountain would have been devoured and refined, and the Purple Mountain would have been destroyed. At this time, Zi Xintong was very happy. At this moment, the Exalt Tao Defiant's face was livid as he gazed at the Exalt Tao Defiant. But, yes, he didn't dare to attack Yang Hanwu because the space-time Grand Tao was truly condensing at this moment. If he dared to attack, then he would definitely suffer backlash from the Grand Tao. This was no joke, and he couldn't endure it at all. Perhaps his true body could, but he was only an avatar, an early-stage Tao Lord avatar. The only thing he relied on was the water of time. At this moment, all of his water of time had been devoured by Yang Hanwu into the enormous furnace. The quintessence of the Tao Defiant Palace had been devoured, so it could be considered to be crippled. At this moment, he gnashed his teeth with hatred towards Yang Hanwu. He regretted his actions. If he knew this would happen, then he wouldn't have offended this kid. He wanted Yang Hanwu to stop as well, but he knew that it was too late for reconciliation. All of his plans had failed. Once the Tao Defiant Palace was destroyed, then the connection between him and his true body would be established once more, and he would truly lose his freedom once more. So, he hated Yang Hanwu to the bone. However, once he established contact with his true body, he would definitely teach this little bastard a lesson and make him die a graveless death to take revenge. Yang at this moment, Hongwu's aura was rising madly, and his cultivation was rising madly as well. First, in an instant, he was at the 7th and 8th level of the Emperor realm. First, he was rising madly. It didn't take long for Yang Hongwu's cultivation to rise to the peak of the Emperor realm, the half-step ruler realm. He was only a step away from breaking through the shackles and entering the ruler realm. But, yes, this threshold wasn't so easy to break through. One had to undergo the baptism of tribulation lightning in order to truly break through. The Exalt Tao Defiant had set up a special restriction within the Tao Defiant Palace, and it was isolated from the outside world. So, the tribulation lightning in this world was unable to descend. "Open for me!" Yang Hanwu roared. Hanwu roared and suddenly opened his eyes. Terrifying rays of light shot out from his eyes, transforming into two sharp arrows with terrifying auras that pierced through the space. In an instant, the barrier between the Tao Defiant Palace and the outside world was broken. At this moment, the entire world underwent a drastic change. The entire Tao Defiant Palace was locked down by a terrifying aura. Tribulation clouds were condensing. This was Yang Hongwu's ruler tribulation. Once he passed this tribulation, Yang Hanwu would be able to break through the bottleneck of the Emperor realm and enter the ruler realm. This was a huge threshold. The ruler tribulation. Terrifying, this is too terrifying. Zi Xintong swallowed her saliva. The moment the space was torn apart, she fled into the snowy highlands. At this moment, the space of the Tao Defiant Palace was completely torn apart and exposed to the snowy highlands. All the experts on the snowy highlands discovered that a huge space had appeared on the snowy highlands. However, when they sensed the terrifying aura within the Tao Defiant Palace, their divine senses retreated one after another. If you want to chat about the 9 Heavens Divine Dragon technique with more like-minded people, follow me on WeChat. Chat about life, find a soulmate. Chapter 2080. This kid is undergoing the tribulation of a ruler. It's simply even more terrifying than the tribulation of a Tao Lord. He's simply inhuman. At this moment, even the corners of the Exalt Tao Defiant's mouth twitched incessantly. Even though he hated Yang Hanwu to the bone, he had no choice but to admit that Yang Hanwu was truly too heaven-defying. Even though this kid was only undergoing the tribulation of a ruler, it was actually even more formidable than the tribulation of a Tao Lord. Such a situation was simply unprecedented. The tribulation of a ruler. It's finally here. I'm about to break through into the ruler realm. Yang Hanwu raised his head and gazed at the enormous tribulation cloud in the sky. The tribulation cloud was filled with terrifying pressure. It was like an enormous mountain that would descend at any moment and crush everyone beneath it. Not only did Yang Hanwu not feel any fear when facing such formidable pressure, he was extremely excited instead. The tribulation of a ruler had aroused his strong battle intent. Because he was clearly aware that once he overcame this tribulation, then he would truly be able to break through his current bottleneck and enter the ruler realm. It wasn't going too far to say that he'd ascended to the heavens in a single bound. Because he'd relied on the Tao Defiant Palace and the Water of Time to obtain the laws of the Tao Defiant, and his cultivation had improved tremendously as well. He'd instantly advanced by a few realms and charged directly into the ruler realm. Origin in the beginning, Yang Hanwu thought that it would take some time for him to break through into the ruler realm, and he would even need fortuitous encounters. The first was to break through the special barrier between the common life divine domain and the devil domain, and then devour the energy within the formation to improve his cultivation. The other was just as Zi Xintong had said. He had to obtain the quintessence of the common life divine domain, refine it, and become the true master of the common life divine domain. Only in that way would he be able to break through. But he hadn't expected that the Exalt Tao Defiant would give him such a huge gift. The strength of the Exalt Tao Defiance was formidable indeed. If it wasn't for his special cultivation technique and formidable divine ability, then he would have probably become a prisoner of the Exalt Tao Defiance by now. After all, the Exalt Tao Defiance strength was obvious, and the Water of Time was rather terrifying. Unfortunately, it wasn't the purest and most primitive space-time water. This portion of space-time water was far inferior to the space-time water that flowed from the space-time quintessence. Moreover, the strengths of the Exalt Tao Defiance seemed to have been restricted. It was exactly because of all of these reasons that he'd been able to obtain such benefits. Here at this moment, Yang Hanwu felt that the Exalt Tao Defiance even had the intention to die. Think a trace of a smile couldn't help but curl up on the corners of Yang Hanwu's mouth. A fortuitous encounter. What was a fortuitous encounter? This was a fortuitous encounter, an enormous fortuitous encounter. Those were the laws of the space-time Tao. Even though he'd only comprehended a trace of the laws of the space-time Tao, it was enough. After all, it was only the beginning. Once he grew stronger, his comprehension of the space-time Tao would become even more perfect, and once he comprehended the laws of the space-time Tao to a certain extent, then it wouldn't be difficult for him to return to Earth. Think Yang Hanwu grew even more excited at this point. Heavens! The tribulation clouds in the sky grew more and more terrifying, and the pressure grew stronger and stronger. However, Yang Hanwu grew happier and happier. Come! Yang Hanwu roared at the tribulation clouds in the sky, let me witness the might of the Overlord Tribulation. As soon as he spoke, the tribulation clouds in the sky seemed to have been infuriated. They ceaselessly surged and wriggled while lightning flickered within them. It didn't take long for numerous heads to appear above them. Actually. Then, an army appeared. How is this possible? Seeing this scene, Zi Xintong couldn't help but cry out, this is only the first lightning tribulation. How can something like this happen? Those are immemorial thunder soldiers. How can immemorial thunder soldiers appear in the first lightning tribulation? The probability of immemorial thunder soldiers appearing in the first lightning tribulation was very small. It was simply unimaginable that immemorial thunder soldiers would appear in the first lightning tribulation. It had never happened before. The so-called immemorial thunder soldiers were actually the Almighty who had mastered the great Tao of lightning in ancient times. They were in charge of the great Tao of punishment. There were countless experts under his command, and the lowest level was the immemorial thunder soldiers. This was his army. Although there weren't many primordial thunder soldiers in front of him, there were still several hundred of them. Although there were only a few hundred primordial thunder soldiers, they were still terrifyingly strong, comparable to half-step Tao Lords. While furthermore, these immemorial lightning armaments were all very powerful. Although their cultivation was only at the sovereign level, the immemorial lightning armaments' battle prowess was simply too terrifying. The battle prowess of several hundred sovereign-level immemorial lightning armaments was simply unimaginable. What a fellow! This kid is courting death. Immemorial thunder soldiers. Immemorial thunder soldiers appeared in the first lightning tribulation. Even if he can overcome the first lightning tribulation, how can he overcome the remaining lightning tribulations? Even if his combat strength is extraordinary, he still won't be able to resist them. The exalted Tao Defiant gazed at Yang Hanwu with complicated emotions in his eyes. This kid had ruined his plan, but he had to admit that this kid was truly heaven-defying. He'd never seen immemorial thunder soldiers appear in the ruler realm's tribulation. Moreover, it was the first lightning tribulation. Because he knew that he'd seen too many experts overcome their tribulations, and every single one of them had appeared during the Tao Lord tribulation. Moreover, it had appeared during the last 3 lightning tribulations. Interesting. An army has actually appeared. However, this army is too small. It's not enough. A trace of surprise flashed through Yang Hongwu's eyes as he gazed at the immemorial thunder soldier in the sky. However, it was merely a trace of surprise. Even though this army was formidable, they were only lightning tribulations after all. Even though they had combat awareness, it was only combat awareness. They didn't have self-awareness, so it wouldn't consume too much energy to deal with such a small army. On the contrary, this army could replenish his strength. It would allow his spiritual force to recover to its peak state. Because Yang Hongwu's cultivation had improved tremendously, and his strength had increased tremendously. However, his spiritual force had been greatly exhausted after all. At this moment, he needed to replenish his spiritual force the most. The appearance of these immemorial thunder soldiers just happened to give him a chance to recuperate. Yang Hongwu grunted lightly, and then he waved his hand. Numerous talismans appeared in midair, and then they condensed into numerous talisman beasts. Drawing talismans in midair and talisman beasts. This is simply unbelievable. He's actually an expert in talismans. The exalted Tao Defiant's eyes were open wide. Isn't that the supreme ability of that person? How did he know it? Only a single person knew how to draw talismans in midair and condense talisman beasts. If you want to chat about the 9 Heavens Divine Dragon technique with more like-minded people, follow me on WeChat. Chat about life and find friends. Chapter 2081. So what if you have an army of primeval thunder soldiers? I have a myriad of talisman beasts as my army. Yang Hanwu couldn't help but smile as he gazed at the primeval thunder soldiers that appeared in the sky. He had to admit that Yang Hanwu was shocked by them in the beginning, but he wasn't afraid after he recovered from his shock. The lightning tribulation had primeval thunder soldiers, but did he not have an army of his own? He had a supreme inheritance in the Tao of talismans that allowed him to draw talismans in midair, and the talismans he drew could directly transform into talisman beasts. In fact, his attainments in the Tao of talismans weren't sufficient right now. Once his attainments in the Tao of talismans rose to a higher level, then he would be able to directly transform talismans into talisman beasts. Talisman beasts were a level higher than talisman beasts, so their might naturally couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. Of course, even though they had only transformed into talisman beasts now, it was enough to deal with these primeval thunder soldiers. Even though their individual combat strength wasn't sufficient, they could make up for it with numbers. This was where Yang Hongwu's confidence came from. When he drew talismans in midair, these talismans would transform into talisman beasts in an endless stream. So long as there was sufficient spirit energy in this space and he had sufficient mental energy, then he could draw an endless stream of talismans and condense talisman beasts. The Tao of talismans is truly incredible. This kid actually obtained that person's inheritance. I underestimated him. At this moment, the venerable Tao Defiant was truly regretful. Even though he knew that there was an extremely domineering and powerful force within Yang Hongwu's body, and it was so terrifying that it was absolutely the inheritance left behind by an ancient expert, he still had a chance if it was just this force. But he'd never imagined that Yang Hongwu actually had another inheritance, and it was actually that person's inheritance. Because she knew that he was one of the few powerhouses in the myriad heavens and myriad worlds. Even his true body, the venerable Tao Defiant, was actually quite a bit weaker than that person. This kid. Even his true body didn't dare to rashly offend that person's inheritance. But now, it had already happened, and he had no room to turn back. Moreover, his true body wouldn't let him go. since I am afraid my days have come to an end. When he thought up to this point, this clone of the Exalt Tao Defiant felt extremely sorrowful in his heart. No one was willing to face death, and no one was willing to truly vanish. As an expert with great ambition, he was naturally unwilling to disappear just like that. To them, even if they were to disappear, they would leave behind a mark that belonged to them in the myriad worlds. However, he might not be able to do so. While at this moment, after Yan Hanwu released the talisman beasts, he started to concentrate on recovering, and he didn't take the tribulation lightning seriously at all. Unexpectedly, he didn't care anymore. Look, Zi Xintong couldn't help but widen her eyes. Was this brat crazy? He was undergoing a tribulation, a sovereign tribulation. How dare he look down on the sovereign tribulation in such a way? Recovering his cultivation base was simply suicidal. This was an insult to the sovereign tribulation, and it would definitely incur the wrath of the sovereign tribulation's enforcers. After reaching a certain level, it was clear to everyone that the various thunder tribulations were controlled by someone in all the realms. The person in control had terrifying strength. He was the unparalleled powerhouse who controlled the Thunder Dao. Every single one of them. Every level had his incarnation. Until now, no one knew what level this expert who wielded the Thunder Punishment was at. It was rumored that he had already surpassed the Great Path. Of course, all of this was just speculation. No matter what, Yang Hongwu's actions were actually a form of provocation to the heavenly tribulation. Once he infuriated it, then it would become even more terrifying and formidable. Since the ancient times until now, it wasn't that no one had attempted to provoke the heavenly tribulation, and every single one of those who dared to do so were peerless geniuses. However, after they provoked the heavenly tribulation, they faced a heavenly tribulation that was a few times stronger than their original heavenly tribulation. So, they were utterly unable to resist it, and they were blasted to death by the terrifying might of the heavenly tribulation. Only a very small number of them were able to survive. Even then, they could be considered to have failed the tribulation because their quintessence had been damaged by the might of the heavenly tribulation, and they were unable to return to their peak cultivation talent. That kid is really courting death. The Exalt Tao Defiant was surprised when he saw Yang Hanwu courting death like that, but he laughed coldly right after that. This kid really doesn't know his limits. Even though he's a genius and even possesses the most outstanding natural talent amongst all the geniuses I've seen, he actually dared to provoke the heavenly tribulation. Since the ancient times until now, there were very few people who could survive after provoking the heavenly tribulation. So what if their natural talent was extraordinary? In the end, they would be transformed into ash by the heavenly tribulation. So, at this moment, the heavenly tribulation seemed to be furious. It hadn't expected that Yang Hanwu would actually disregard it and pay no attention to it after releasing the talisman beasts. It was furious to the extreme. The tribulation clouds in the sky roiled once more, and the pressure it emanated was a few times stronger than before. At this moment, the strength of the primeval lightning soldiers had more than doubled. So, in an instant, the strengthened primeval lightning soldiers seemed as if they'd been injected with chicken blood, and they instantly gained the upper hand against the numerous talisman beasts. It didn't take long for the primeval lightning soldiers to actually slaughter all the talisman beasts, but only a few primeval lightning soldiers remained. They didn't stop after killing the talisman beasts, and they continued charging towards Yang Hanwu instead. Watch out! At this moment, Zi Xintong couldn't help but exclaim and warn Chen Qi. But, how could Yang Hanwu possibly hear Zi Xintong's warning at a time like this? The primeval lightning soldier's spear was about to pierce Yang Hanwu's chest. At this moment, a light shield formed around Yang Hanwu's body. This light shield instantly blocked the attacks of these immemorial thunder soldiers. After blocking the attacks, a profound change occurred to the barrier of light, and it actually started to devour the energy of the primeval lightning soldiers. No! It didn't take long for the primeval lightning soldiers to be devoured by Yang Hanwu, and they transformed into pure energy that fused into Yang Hanwu's body. What sort of cultivation technique is this kid cultivating? It's so domineering that it's actually able to devour and refine the primeval lightning soldiers. The Exalt Dao Defiance eyes flickered with greed when he saw Yang Hongwu's divine ability and secret technique. He was naturally tempted when he saw such a domineering divine ability and secret technique. If he was able to obtain this divine ability, then perhaps he would truly be able to become an independent expert. However, he was utterly unable to make a move against Yang Hongwu right now. If he did, then the heavenly tribulation would lock onto him and attack him. He didn't want to offend the terrifying heavenly tribulation. Chapter 2082. Yang Hongwu's mental state was recovering rapidly as his strength continued to rise. At this moment, Yang Hongwu's entire being was like a gigantic furnace, constantly devouring and refining the surrounding heaven and earth spiritual qi. Heavens! The tribulation was thoroughly enraged. At this moment the lightning tribulation did not cause any harm to Yang Hongwu. Instead, it helped Yang Hongwu immensely, allowing Yang Hongwu's strength to recover greatly. At this moment, the next moment, a thunderous giant was formed above the tribulation clouds in the sky. This thunderous giant had a majestic look on its face, hand-holding a long spear. That's Thunder Dao Lord. Thunder Dao Lord from the ancient times. Seeing this thunderous giant, the few of them were stunned. At this moment, the experts in the distance also noticed this giant. The experts in the entire snowy highland could not believe that someone who was undergoing a tribulation would attract Thunder Dao Lord. Thunder Dao Lord was extremely strong. He was an unparalleled expert from the ancient times. Back then, he could be said to be an invincible existence in the same era. At this moment, after Thunder Dao Lord entered a higher level, he received the recognition of that person and became his successor, replacing him to wield the lightning tribulation. No. Yes, this was just a guess. No one knew where the real Thunder Dao Lord had gone after disappearing. After all, the higher levels of space were not existences that they could know about. However, the strength of this Thunder Dao Lord was indeed extremely terrifying. It was extremely rare for a Thunder Dao Lord to appear during a Dao Lord's tribulation. After all, it was a Dao Lord's lightning tribulation. It was acceptable for some talented geniuses to appear during their Dao Lord's tribulation. But now, Yang Hongwu was just a mere ruler's tribulation. The immemorial thunder weapon had appeared at the beginning, and now, the incarnation of Thunder Dao Lord had appeared. This showed how much hatred Yang Hongwu had. Yang Hongwu looked at the thunderous giant. In fact, the thunderous giant's strength had not reached the level of a true Dao Lord. At most, it was equivalent to a half-step Dao Lord. But it was still quite terrifying. The thunderous will contained within the giant's body was not something that ordinary half-step Dao Lords could compare to. Although the thunderous giant's cultivation was only equivalent to a half-step Dao Lord, its true combat strength definitely surpassed any half-step Dao Lord. This is interesting, Yang Hongwu said. Hongwu opened his mouth and said, "Come, let me see how strong this Thunder Dao Lord is." At this moment, Thunder Dao Lord said, "Thunder Dao Lord's Dao Lord. But it won't be easy to defeat me. If you can defeat me, I'll give you an unimaginable benefit." Hearing this, Yang Hongwu was a little stunned. No. God is a ruler's tribulation. Why did it sound so different after listening to it? Is this a fucking test? Or is it a heavenly tribulation? Zi Xintong smiled. She hadn't expected Thunder Dao Lord to know Yang Hongwu. She had to admit that Yang Hongwu really did have a wide range of friends in his past life, is simply giving Yang Hongwu benefits on purpose. It's to improve Yang Hongwu's cultivation. Zi Xintong suddenly thought of her good nephew. It seemed like her good nephew was the reincarnation of an expert as well, and his background wasn't small at all. However, he'd never been able to gain any advantage against Yang Hongwu. She thought that her nephew would be able to suppress Yang Hongwu once his cultivation had advanced to the Dao Lord realm and would soon reach the peak of the Dao Lord realm. She'd intended to help Yang Hongwu once Yang Hongwu was completely suppressed. But she hadn't expected that Yang Hongwu would have so many trump cards. Moreover, this tribulation actually provided such benefits. After the ruler's tribulation, Yang Hongwu's strength would rise to a terrifying level. At that time, even Zetian might not be able to gain an advantage against Yang Hongwu. It was even to the extent that, not to mention gaining an advantage, Zetian might even be suppressed by Yang Hongwu and lose to him once more. Yang Hongwu was stunned for a moment before he spoke. What benefits? Defeat me first. If you can't, you'll be in trouble. Thunder Dao Lord said, I won't show any mercy. Come on, I'm not afraid of any challenge. Yang Hongwu shouted. Yang Hongwu made his move. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he held a saber with both hands. Originally, Yang Hongwu was confident that he could defeat the half-step Dao Lord Thunder Dao Lord's clone without using his primordial saber. However, he was facing an expert from the ancient era. If he didn't go all out, he might fail miserably. I will only use one move. If you can take this move, then I will consider you to have passed. With that, Thunder Dao Lord waved the long spear in his hand in the void. A bright flash of lightning appeared in the void and tore through the void towards Yang Hongwu. Yang Hongwu narrowed his eyes. Although the thunderbolt looked ordinary, Yang Hongwu could feel the terrifying destructive power within it. This was the supreme power of the law of the Great Path. The power of the law of thunder contained the power to destroy everything. This thunderbolt's power was domineering and could destroy everything. Yang Hongwu's face was extremely solemn. In the blink of an eye, the thunderbolt appeared in front of Yang Hongwu. There was no way to dodge it. He could only face it head-on. Did thunderbolt really represent destruction? No, the power of thunderbolt didn't just represent destruction. It also represented vitality. Yes, vitality. This thunderbolt's power seemed to be able to destroy everything, but in fact, it was full of vitality. What is he doing? Originally, Yang Hongwu had already taken out his saber and prepared to receive the thunderbolt light and Thunder Dao Lord's attack. However, in the next moment, Yang Hongwu actually put away his saber and opened his arms, as though he was welcoming the thunderbolt light's attack. Xiantong was stunned. She didn't dare to believe that Yang Hongwu was courting death. Was he trying to take things too hard and bring about his own destruction? Or could it be that this thunderbolt contained some special power that confused Yang Hongwu and made him lose his consciousness? If that was the case, what could she do? In an instant, the light of the thunderbolt enveloped Yang Hongwu, causing his entire body to disappear. His figure could no longer be seen clearly. It's over. Xiantong closed her eyes. She couldn't believe what was happening. Only then did Yang Hongwu know that after the thunderbolt entered his body, the majestic power was frantically transforming his physical body, increasing his physical strength and making his immortal dragon body to another level, making him even more powerful. Chapter 2083. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that Yang Hongwu was reborn. Yang Hongwu's strength increased tremendously. In particular, some of the minor hidden injuries in Yang Hongwu's body were also healed. Originally, Yang Hongwu cultivated the immortal dragon physique. Such a strong body was difficult to damage. However, after a bit of accumulation, Yang Hongwu's body still had some minor injuries. Of course, these minor injuries weren't a big deal. However, once it reached a certain level, these minor injuries would accumulate and limit his future achievements. The power of life brought about by this bolt of lightning allowed Yang Hongwu to undergo an astonishing upgrade, allowing his body to reach the true peak. Not bad, not bad. I didn't expect you to comprehend this so quickly. If you couldn't, you would have been beaten back to your original form. Thunder Dao Lord nodded at Yang Hongwu's reaction. Thunder Dao Lord's avatar curled his lips into a smile after Yang Hongwu refined the thunderbolt law contained in the thunderbolt. Catch with a wave of his hand, the spear in his hand also flew over. Yang Hongwu was slightly taken aback. He grabbed the spear. This was the origin power of thunderbolt, which surprised Yang Hongwu. Consider this a gift for you. Of course, you already know about the previous gift. You have passed the test, so I should be leaving. Having said that, Thunder Tao Lord disappeared from the spot. Next, the tribulation clouds in the sky also disappeared. This scene shocked Yan Hongwu. He didn't expect this to happen. His so-called ruler's tribulation had a strong start but a weak finish. Moreover, it left him with a spear condensed from thunderbolt origin power. Inside, after the tribulation disappeared, the spear turned into a ray of light and fused into Yang Hongwu's arm. Yang Hongwu was stunned for a moment. He noticed that he couldn't refine and absorb this thunderbolt origin power even if he wanted to. Yang Hongwu was extremely displeased by the fact that he couldn't expel it. However, it seemed like this thunderbolt origin power wasn't a threat to him, so Yang Hongwu heaved a sigh of relief. Your cultivation has improved greatly. Meanwhile, Zi Xintong instantly appeared by Yang Hongwu's side and blocked the Exalt Dao Defiance attack. It's just a small improvement. It's not worth mentioning. Yang Hongwu spoke indifferently. Even though Yang Hongwu spoke modestly, the improvement in his cultivation was actually extremely helpful to him. At the very least, Yang Hongwu's situation when facing a Dao Lord was no longer restricted. So what if your cultivation has improved? You'll still die. At this moment, the Exalt Dao Defiance clone was looking at Yang Hongwu and Zi Xintong with a ferocious expression. Zi Xintong, it's not too late for you to leave. I'll definitely kill him today. He destroyed everything I had. Yang Hongwu ridiculed coldly. What a joke. You're dreaming if you want to kill me. You weren't able to do it even when my cultivation hadn't improved. Now that I've broken through, it's even more impossible for you to kill me. Right? Yang Hongwu didn't take his threat seriously at all. If it was in the past, Yang Hongwu would really be unable to deal with the Exalt Dao Defiant, and he would merely be able to suppress the Exalt Dao Defiant. Yet now, Yang Hongwu was fully confident in his ability to seal and suppress the Exalt Dao Defiant. I admit that you're extremely strong, and you were probably an invincible expert in your past life. However, you haven't recovered in the end. Even though I can't kill you, I can still pose a threat to you. Moreover, I've already communicated with my main body. Your death is coming soon. Once my main body arrives, you'll definitely die. Ha ha. The Exalt Dao Defiance clone roared with laughter. In the next moment, his aura rose madly. He seemed like a bomb as his aura locked onto Yang Hongwu, and he charged swiftly towards Yang Hongwu and Zi Xintong. Explode. Yang Hongwu's expression changed while the space around them started to tremble. The world of the Dao Defiant Palace was about to collapse. We have to leave this place as soon as possible. Yang Hongwu spoke loudly. Zi Xintong's expression changed drastically as she shouted, "We can't. The surroundings of the Dao Defiant Palace have been completely sealed off. I can't sense the outside world. You won't be able to escape. I've used all my strength to seal off this space. You won't be able to escape. I've paid a huge price to create this Dao Defiant Palace. If it wasn't for the heavenly tribulation just now, the outside world wouldn't be able to sense this place at all. Now that I've sealed this place with my life force, you can forget about escaping unless your cultivation surpasses the Dao Lord realm and reaches the level of my main body." The Exalt Dao Defiance voice resounded in their ears. At this moment, he transformed into an enormous ball of light that flew towards them. The sudden change also made Yang Hongwu extremely surprised. "You can't kill me." Yang Hongwu grunted coldly and waved his hand, causing a powerful light to envelop them. Undying Guard. This divine ability was incomparably powerful. It could protect the two of them in the time it took to breathe, preventing them from suffering any harm. A ball of light exploded in an instant. The powerful impact instantly engulfed the two of them. Zi Xintong summoned a powerful defensive treasure and enveloped them within it. After the domineering explosion, more than half of their strength had been consumed. However, they weren't injured by the terrifying impact. They'd only used up too much of their magic power. How do we leave now? Zi Xintong took a deep breath and looked at the space around them. The Tao Defiant Palace that was originally like a paradise had been turned into ruins. The entire space was deathly still and devoid of any life force. "It's fine. I have a way to break out of this space," said Yang Hongwu. After all, this was a world. So long as they destroyed the world quintessence of the Tao Defiant Palace, then they could easily break out of this world and leave. "You really have a way?" Zi Xintong was extremely surprised. "You wouldn't be thinking of unsealing that energy within you, right?" When she saw Yang Hongwu's confident look, Zi Xintong recalled that there was an extremely domineering energy within Yang Hongwu's body. This energy was extremely powerful, and if it were to erupt, then a mere sealed space would be nothing. Only, if that energy were to erupt, then not to mention a mere sealed space, even a sealed space that was a few times stronger would be easily destroyed. No matter what space it was, everything was empty before absolute energy. Chapter 2084. Of course it's not a problem. I never boast. Since I dared to say it, then I have sufficient confidence. I never fight a battle that I'm not confident in. I basically won't take any risks unless it's absolutely safe. Unless it's a special situation and I have no other choice, then I'll take the risk. A mere space like this isn't a threat to me at all. A trace of a smile curled up on the corners of Yang Hongwu's mouth. In Yang Hongwu's opinion, the exalted Tao Defiance clone had used its own strength to completely seal off this space. It wanted to seal him up for a period of time and wait for the exalted Tao Defiance main body to come and deal with him. Yang Hongwu was overthinking things. The God domain should be a special large world or universe. Even if the exalted Tao Defiance main body could enter this place, it would be impossible for it to do so in an extremely short period of time. If that was the case, then the exalted Tao Defiance main body would probably be able to tear through space and enter this place. For an expert at that level, breaking through a mere spatial barrier or even traversing through a myriad of worlds wasn't difficult at all. This space has been reinforced, and it isn't something that can be broken through in a short period of time. Unless you possess the legendary Dharma Eye of Obliteration. Could it be that you possess the legendary Dharma Eye of Obliteration? Zi Xintong stared at Yang Hongwu when she saw how confident Yang Hongwu was. Yang Hongwu was extremely shocked when he heard this. He gazed at Zi Xintong and didn't dare believe that she actually knew about the Dharma Eye of Obliteration. He took a deep breath. At this moment, there was no point in concealing it anymore. Yang Hongwu had to rely on the Dharma Eye of Obliteration to break through this space. In that way, the secret of his Dharma Eye of Obliteration would definitely be exposed. However, he had no other choice at this moment. I do possess the Dharma Eye of Obliteration. However, it's still in a state of growth and hasn't reached its final form. Yang Hongwu said, if I possessed the complete Dharma Eye of Obliteration, then I'm afraid no world or plane would be able to accommodate my existence. Zi Xintong was extremely shocked as she gazed at Yang Hongwu. She really hadn't expected that Yang Hongwu would actually possess the Dharma Eye of Obliteration. This was too shocking. That, however, no one who possessed the Dharma Eye of Annihilation was blessed by the Great Tao. It could be said that the Dharma Eye of Annihilation was the enemy of the Great Tao. However, Yang Hongwu was an exception. Zi Xintong didn't believe that the Great Tao wouldn't notice Yang Hongwu's possession of the Dharma Eye of Annihilation and would even allow him to have such a majestic destiny. Perhaps he really was the child of the Great Tao, the child of the Great Tao of the myriad worlds. Division in this way, those who possessed the Dharma Eye of Annihilation were all targeted by the Great Tao. No, Zi Xintong thought for a moment. The energy in Yang Hongwu's body was too strong. Maybe it was an existence that surpassed the Great Tao. No matter what, the fact that Yang Hongwu possessed the Dharma Eye of Annihilation was the most shocking thing to Zi Xintong. This is even more shocking than when she first came to the divine domain and obtained the cultivation memories of her previous life, which greatly improved her cultivation. The Dharma Eye of Annihilation? You want the complete Dharma Eye of Annihilation? Are you kidding? If you really want the complete Dharma Eye of Annihilation, I'm afraid you'll be rejected by the world will of the myriad worlds. Zi Xintong said. That won't happen. Yang Hanwu smiled faintly. My situation is special. Do you know how terrifying the Dharma Eye of Annihilation is? You have the Dharma Eye of Annihilation, which is an uncontrollable existence. If you wait until it grows up, I'm afraid you won't be able to control it and will become its puppet. I advise you to give it up or even destroy it before it grows up. At this moment, Zi Xintong recalled that the reason why the Dharma Eye of Annihilation was so terrifying and was rejected by the myriad worlds was because it couldn't be controlled. Those who once had the Dharma Eye of Annihilation were, in fact, controlled by the Dharma Eye of Annihilation in the end. They became puppets of the Dharma Eye of Annihilation and only had the thought of destroying everything. They had no self-awareness at all. Don't worry, I know what to do. Yan Hanwu said. It's just the Dharma Eye of Annihilation. If it dares to resist me, I'll destroy it. Yan Hanwu was very confident. Hearing this, Zi Xintong shook her head. She knew that Yan Hanwu wouldn't give up. After all, the Dharma Eye of Annihilation was an extremely powerful existence in the myriad worlds. Even if it was terrifying, it could bring great power. There were very few people who could resist the temptation of the Dharma Eye of Annihilation. Zi Xintong believed that if she obtained the Dharma Eye of Annihilation, she might not be willing to give it up. Although the Dharma Eye of Annihilation is powerful, it has many drawbacks. You should be aware of this. The most terrible thing about the Dharma Eye of Annihilation is not that it will be rejected by the myriad worlds, but that it will affect your own consciousness. Therefore, if you find that your personality has changed greatly and you become more murderous, then it's very likely that you've been affected by the Dharma Eye of Annihilation, Zi Xintong said. Let me remind you here. I hope you won't be affected by the Dharma Eye of Annihilation. Thank you for your concern. Yang Hanwu nodded. However, he was still very confident in his heart. It wouldn't be easy for the Dharma Eye of Annihilation to affect his mind. Once he was strong enough, the Dharma Eye of Annihilation would be useless to him, and he would seal it. No! His current strength wasn't enough, and there were many places where he needed the Dharma Eye of Annihilation. For example, if he didn't have the Dharma Eye of Annihilation, then he probably wouldn't be able to leave this world for a long time. I'm clearly aware of that. Now, move back a little while I'll open up this space. If we're too late and that Exalt Tao Defiant's true body arrives, then we'll be in huge trouble, said Yang Hanwu. Yang Hanwu had to admit that the Venerable Tao Defiant was extremely strong. Merely a clone of the Venerable Tao Defiant was so terrifying. So, how would he resist the Venerable Tao Defiant's true body if it really traversed the myriad worlds to come here? Yang Hanwu wasn't confident in that at all. After all, this clone of the Venerable Tao Defiant probably didn't even possess a 10,000th of the Venerable Tao Defiant's true body's strength. Even he had some karmic luck when facing this clone of the Venerable Tao Defiant, so it was absolutely impossible for him to defeat the Venerable Tao Defiant's true body. That was the reason why Yang Hanwu was so anxious. Dharma Eye of Annihilation, open. As soon as Yang Hanwu shouted, a Dharma Eye opened up at the center of Yang Hanwu's forehead. The Dharma Eye emanated the light of annihilation, and everywhere it passed, space started to collapse. Chapter 2085. Under the sweep of the divine light of the Dharma Eye of Annihilation, the whole space quickly collapsed. The speed was so fast that it left everyone speechless. Even Yang Hanwu was surprised. This speed was a bit too fast, it was simply beyond his expectations. Outside. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for the speed to be so fast. Was there some kind of trap in this? However, at this moment, Yang Hanwu couldn't care less. No matter what he was plotting, he had to break this spatial world. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to leave this place. Wherever the divine light of annihilation went, the space collapsed, and the origin of space was gradually devoured and refined by the Dharma Eye of Annihilation. Yang Hanwu's cultivation base was rising little by little, and his Dharma Eye of Annihilation was becoming more and more powerful. Not good. Yang Hanwu suddenly realized that something was wrong. After devouring and refining the space origin, the Dharma Eye of Annihilation showed signs of losing control, which made Yang Hanwu's face change dramatically. Yang Hanwu hurriedly tried to control the Dharma Eye of Annihilation, but he soon found that he couldn't control it at all. Seeing Yang Hanwu's reaction, Zi Xintong knew that something was wrong. However, she didn't understand what had happened. She quickly asked, "What's wrong? What happened?" Yang Hanwu laughed bitterly as he spoke. "I never expected that I would actually fall into a trap. The remnant intent of the Exalt Tao Defiance still exists in this expansive space, and it drew out the devil intent." Yang Hanwu had never imagined that the devil intent of the Exalt Tao Defiance had actually fused into this world. Demonic thoughts? That's right, it's demonic will. Yang Hanwu took a deep breath. This isn't a clone of an Exalt Tao Defiant, it's the clone of a strand of devil intent. The Exalt Tao Defiant had sealed a strand of his devil intent within this clone, and that was the reason why this clone constantly wanted to leave his main body. It was because of the devil intent. Even if it was just a strand of devilish intent, the devilish intent of a peerless expert was rather terrifying. Now, the Exalt Tao Defiance clone had perished because of him, and the devilish intent had lost its shackles and been released. However, the wisp of demonic will did not dissipate, nor did it show itself immediately. Instead, it remained hidden in the space. When his world-destroying divine light destroyed this world and refined its origin, this wisp of demonic will entered his Dharma Eye of Annihilation along with the origin of the world. Demonic will? Zi Xintong was taken aback. Your demonic will? Zi Xintong thought that Yang Hongwu's mind wasn't firm enough and was invaded by his inner demons. This was a real possibility. For a cultivator, it was a very frightening thing to have an inner demon. If they couldn't resolve the inner demon, they would be able to overcome it. If it was the demonic tribulation, it would be troublesome. The demonic heart tribulation was, in fact, the most terrifying tribulation. Actually, everyone had to face the demonic heart tribulation. This so-called demonic heart tribulation wasn't related to the devil race, but the obsession in the heart. If the obsession in the heart couldn't be eliminated, then it was very likely that the person would be controlled by the demonic heart tribulation and lose their sense of self. Everyone had an obsession, and if the obsession was too deep, then it would develop into an inner demon. This was the origin of the demonic heart tribulation. Yang Hanwu shook his head and said, "No, I'm not talking about my own inner demon. This devil intent was left behind by the Exalt Tao Defiant. After the Exalt Tao Defiance clone perished, the devil intent was hidden within this expansive space. Now that I've refined and absorbed this expansive space, this strand of devil intent has entered my Dharma Eye of Obliteration. If I'm unable to deal with this strand of devil intent, then I'll definitely die. If I'm unable to eliminate this devil intent, then I'll probably lose control of my Dharma Eye of Annihilation." Yang Hanwu was extremely speechless when he heard this. The Exalt Tao Defiance clone was actually the vessel that the Exalt Tao Defiant used to seal his own inner demon. Such a method of dealing with the devil intent was extremely speechless because he'd never heard of such a method. However, Yang Hanwu had to admit that it wasn't a bad method. It was to seal one's inner demon within the clone and enter the myriad of worlds. However, it was dangerous as well. Moreover, it was extremely dangerous. The slightest mistake might cause the devil intent to expand and become a true devil. At that time, even the main body would probably be unable to suppress it. At that level, it would be too late to put an end to it. After all, someone who was able to seal their own devil intent within the clone was sufficient to prove that the person possessed sufficient strength to control the devil intent. At this moment, Yang Hanwu understood something. He understood why the Exalt Tao Defiance clone was so confident that the Exalt Tao Defiance main body would come to this world as soon as possible to look for trouble with him. This enmity couldn't be said to be small at all. He destroyed the Exalt Tao Defiance plans and allowed the Exalt Tao Defiance devil intent to charge out of the seal. If the Exalt Tao Defiance devil intent was allowed to grow, then it would become a huge problem for the Exalt Tao Defiant. If the Exalt Tao Defiance devil intent couldn't be dealt with, then he would probably become the Exalt Tao Defiance mortal enemy. What? Zi Xintong's expression instantly changed drastically when she heard Yan Hanwu. If it was just the Exalt Tao Defiance devil intent, then they would be able to deal with a single strand of devil intent, and they would just have to expend some effort. If it wasn't enough, then they just had to leave this place. As for how much trouble the devil intent would cause, it wasn't something that they could predict. After all, it was better to die than to die. But the problem now was that the devil intent had actually fused into Yang Hongwu's Dharma Eye of Obliteration, and that was truly a huge problem. What sort of existence was the Dharma Eye of Obliteration? If the devil intent were to invade it, then it would probably cause the entire God domain to collapse. It would collapse along with the growth of the Dharma Eye of Annihilation. Once the Dharma Eye of Annihilation lost control, the first one to suffer would probably be Yan Hanwu. After all, Yan Hanwu was the owner of the Dharma Eye of Annihilation. You're saying that you're unable to control the Dharma Eye of Obliteration now? I can't control it. At least, I can't do it now. Yan Hanwu said calmly, what I need to do now is to eliminate that devil intent and regain control of the Dharma Eye of Obliteration. What do you need me to do? Zi Xintong looked at Yan Hanwu with a very solemn expression. In her opinion, if Yan Hanwu lost control of the Dharma Eye of Obliteration, then Yan Hanwu would suffer and she wouldn't be able to gain any benefits. That was something that she didn't want to see. She would. After all, she still wanted to use Yan Hongwu's strength to break through to a higher level. However, she wasn't willing to give up on Yan Hanwu unless she had no other choice. After all, Yan Hanwu was the only man that had ever moved her heart, and he was the only person she had met who could help her break through that shackle. If you protect me, this space will collapse. I'm worried that the experts from the Snowy Plateau will appear. At that time, I'll have to rely on you to help me block them, Yan Hanwu said. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about the technique of the Nine Heavens Divine Dragon, follow me on WeChat. Chat about life and find a confidant. Chapter 2086. Zi Xintong nodded when she heard Yan Hanwu. She was rather surprised that Yan Hanwu was so confident. After all, it was the devil sense of a peerless expert that had fused into the Dharma Eye of Obliteration. It was truly extraordinary that he still had a way to deal with it. You don't have to worry about that. Zi Xintong said, even though there are numerous experts on Snowy Highlands, they'll absolutely be unable to break through my defenses in a short period of time unless Taoist Xuesong acts. However, Taoist Xuesong won't appear here at all. Hanwu nodded. It's all up to you. As soon as he finished speaking, Yan Hanwu waved his hand and set up a formation. The formation enveloped this area of space and completely sealed it off. At this moment, the Dharma Eye of Obliteration within Yan Hongwu's body seemed to have realized something, and it intended to break through its restraints and escape. Obliteration, the Dharma Eye of Obliteration. No, to be more precise, it was the devil sense of the Exalt Tao Defiant that was trying to escape. However, how could Yan Hanwu allow it to escape? At this moment, the devil sense of the Exalt Tao Defiant transmitted a message. Yan Hanwu, let me go. We'll mind our own business. Mind our own business? Yan Hanwu laughed coldly. Do you think I'll believe you? You've already invaded my Dharma Eye of Obliteration, yet you're actually telling me to mind our own business? What a joke! Hanwu wasn't stupid enough to be bewitched by the devil sense. He absolutely couldn't believe a single word the devil sense said. If the devil sense were to be released, then he would be in huge trouble, and he would definitely be unable to keep his Dharma Eye of Obliteration. It wasn't just that, the devil sense would improve its own cultivation as it devoured the spatial energy within the Tao Defiant Palace, and it would become even stronger. At that time, even Qin Shi wouldn't be able to suppress it, and he would definitely be finished. After all, this clone of the Exalt Tao Defiant had died because of him. I had no choice. Your Dharma Eye of Obliteration possesses formidable strength. I could only recover with the help of your Dharma Eye of Obliteration. However, I've obtained a lot of strength now. I can return the control of your Dharma Eye of Obliteration to you if you let me out, said the devil sense. There's no need to say anything else. It's impossible for me to let you leave. A cold glow flickered in Yang Hongwu's eyes as he started to circulate the energy of the Nine Heavens Divine Dragon Technique, the Devour Furnace, the Red Lotus Karmic Flame, and the energy of creation. Coupled with the energy of devil annihilation, he used them to deal with the devil sense. Even though the devil sense had invaded the Dharma Eye of Obliteration, Yang Hanwu was still the owner of the Dharma Eye of Obliteration at this moment, so the devil sense hadn't been able to take complete control of the Dharma Eye of Obliteration. However, if the devil sense was given a little more time, then Yang Hanwu would probably lose control of the Dharma Eye of Obliteration. You have to think carefully, Yang Hanwu. You can't kill me. Although you're powerful, you can't kill me at all. I'm an immortal existence. If you could really kill me, then the Tao Defiant wouldn't have sealed me in his incarnation. Although I've been suppressed for countless years and my strength has been greatly weakened, I can recover as long as I have enough time. You should know that if you offend me, you'll die when my strength recovers. Of course, if you let me go now, I'll remember your kindness. After my cultivation recovers, I'll make you one of my generals and give you supreme glory, the devil sense said loudly when it saw Yang Hanwu take action. At this moment, it had already condensed into a human figure. The face of this figure was still very blurry, but it was full of supreme demonic power. This wasn't something that an ordinary Tao Lord expert could possess. This was an aura that surpassed that of a Tao Lord. Do you think I'll believe you? Yang Hanwu sneered. He didn't stop and continued to frantically refine the devil sense. Yang Hanwu, since you don't know what's good for you, I'll show you how strong I am. After saying that, the demonic consciousness erupted with a terrifying power. This terrifying power condensed into a demonic bug. This demonic bug actually broke through the layers of restraints and charged towards Yang Hongwu's soul. Yang Hongwu's expression changed drastically. This devil sense was so terrifying that it could turn into a devil worm and attack his soul directly. This was something that he didn't expect. Damn it! Yang Hanwu cursed inwardly. He then gathered his strength and the Life Great Seal instantly erupted, bombarding the devil worm formed by the devil sense. But yes, after the Life Great Seal collided with the devil worm, it stirred up a terrifying energy fluctuation. However, to Yang Hongwu's surprise, the devil worm was unharmed. Pa! Yang Hanwu was stunned. How is this possible? Yang Hanwu had consumed a huge amount of strength in that attack. Although it wasn't Yang Hongwu's full strength, it was equivalent to 80% of his strength. However, that attack didn't cause any damage to the devil worm. This meant that even if he were to attack with his full strength, he might not be able to kill this devil worm. Scary. This devil worm is so scary. Am I going to die here? Think. At this point, Yang Hanwu felt helpless. This was the first time he felt so helpless against an enemy. Could it be that I'm going to die here? No, even if I die here, I won't let them die with me. Yang Hanwu knew how scary this devil worm was. If this devil worm destroyed his soul and took over his body, then the girls would be under the control of this devil sense. Therefore, Yang Hanwu wanted to send the girls out. But, at this moment, a ray of light shrouded Yang Hongwu's body, and a figure appeared. This figure was none other than the long spear left behind by the Thunder Tao Lord. This was an utmost treasure, a thunder spear formed from the power of thunder. This thunder spear turned into the Thunder Tao Lord. I never expected that you wouldn't even be able to resist a mere devil worm, said the Thunder Tao Lord. Yang Hanwu was delighted when he saw the Thunder Tao Lord appear. He knew that the Thunder Tao Lord had probably come to help him because the Thunder Tao Lord knew that he was about to face this calamity. Do you have a way to deal with this devil worm and eliminate the devil sense of this Exalt Tao Defiant? Yang Hanwu gazed at the Thunder Tao Lord as he asked this question. Senior. The Thunder Tao Lord's strength was truly formidable. Yang Hanwu had to admit that. At this moment, the Thunder Tao Lord's consciousness was actually able to keep the terrifying devil worm outside and prevent it from attacking. Of course, if the Thunder Dao Lord wanted to deal with him, then Yang Hanwu wasn't confident in his ability to stop the Thunder Dao Lord. Now, Yang Hanwu realized that his strength was truly insufficient. Chapter 2087. These devilish insects aren't as strong as you imagine them to be. In reality, they're very weak. However, you haven't comprehended the true profundities of the energy of lightning. That's exactly why you're unable to kill them, said Lightning Dao Lord. These devilish insects were formed from the devil intent of the Exalt Dao Defiance. How can they be killed so easily? Yang Hanwu gazed at Lightning Dao Lord and expressed his doubt towards Lightning Dao Lord's words. If the devilish intent of the Exalt Dao Defiance could be annihilated so easily, even if it could be killed so easily, the Exalt Dao Defiance probably wouldn't have paid such a huge price to split his devil intent into a myriad of pieces, seal them within his clone, and send them into the myriad of worlds. Looks like you already know some things. Yes, these insects were formed from the devil intent of the Exalt Dao Defiance. The Exalt Dao Defiance are extremely formidable, and their strength far exceeds your imagination. However, this is only a clone of his, a strand of his devil intent. If you can't even kill a strand of his devil intent, then how will you face his true body? You must remember that you'll have to face countless formidable existences throughout the universe in the future, and the Exalted Dao Defiance is just one of them. Moreover, the Exalted Dao Defiance strength can only be ranked at the bottom amongst the countless enemies you'll face in the future. If you can't even deal with a strand of the devil intent of the current Exalted Dao Defiance, then only death will await you in the future. Lightning Dao Lord looked at Yang Hanwu and said, "Watch how I destroy these devilish insects." As he spoke, Lightning Dao Lord raised his hand lightly, and then a bolt of lightning shot out. The bolt of lightning instantly fused into the devilish insect's body. The devilish insect wriggled incessantly, and then it was split apart by the bolt of lightning. A moment later, it split apart and transformed into nothingness. "Did you see it clearly?" asked Lightning Dao Lord. Yang Hanwu nodded. Yang Hanwu was truly shocked by this ability. Lightning Dao Lord's utilization of the energy of lightning had truly reached the peak of perfection. It was just a demonstration, but he had benefited greatly from it. However, knowing was one thing. It would take a long time for them to achieve this. "Senior, I can see that. However, I'm afraid it's not something that can be done overnight," said Yang Hanwu. "I've already done what I should. Everything is up to you now. It's time for me to leave." With that, Dao Lord Thunder disappeared. Yang Hanwu looked at the spot where Thunder Dao Lord had disappeared and was speechless. It was as though Thunder Dao Lord had never appeared. On the other hand, the devilish intent of the Exalt Dao Defiance was even more ferocious. The surrounding demonic bugs once again charged ferociously at Yang Hanwu. "Yang Hanwu, you're dead this time. Let me see who can save you." The Exalt Dao Defiant gazed at Yang Hanwu as he spoke coldly. "Really?" Yang Hanwu gazed at the demonic bugs that were surging towards him. At this moment, he'd grasped the ability to kill them. The energy of lightning erupted from his hands, and his entire body was enveloped by the glow of lightning. He waved his hand, and bolts of lightning shot out one after another. The demonic bugs that were struck by the bolts of lightning were obliterated one by one. However, the consumption of energy was enormous as well. At this moment, Yang Hanwu's energy was practically completely exhausted. Even though all the demonic bugs had been killed, the Exalt Dao Defiance devilish intent was still undying and indestructible. "Kid, let me go. I won't make a fuss about it with you now." The Exalt Dao Defiance devilish intent had given up when he saw that Yang Hanwu had grasped the ability to kill the demonic bugs. He knew that he was unable to pose a lethal threat to Yang Hanwu anymore. Moreover, the thing that worried him the most was that he'd sensed the aura of the Exalt Dao Defiance true body. This meant that the Exalt Dao Defiance true body was rushing over here, and he was about to arrive. If he didn't leave, then the Exalt Dao Defiance would seal him once more, and he wouldn't have another chance. He wasn't strong enough right now, so he couldn't go head-on against the Exalt Dao Defiance true body. What he needed now was time. However, it just so happened that he had the best opportunity to grow in the shortest amount of time possible, and it was Yang Hongwu's Dharma Eye of Obliteration. However, Yang Hongwu hadn't given him the chance at all. He'd thought that he was about to succeed in seizing the Dharma Eye of Obliteration, but that damnable Lightning Tao Lord had appeared. He was very well aware of Lightning Tao Lord's strength. Even his true body, the Exalt Tao Defiance, feared the strength of Lightning Tao Lord's true body. The existence of two. Because of this, he knew that he no longer had a chance after the appearance of Thunder Tao Lord. Although he didn't know what kind of existence Yang Hongwu was, he was certain that this kid wasn't a simple character. He was definitely the reincarnation of a supreme powerhouse. You want to escape? That's impossible. This is my body. If you want to leave, it's impossible. If you can't kill me after entering this place, then it'll be your death. After Yang Hongwu finished speaking, a dazzling golden light erupted from his body. This dazzling golden light had an indelible effect on the demonic will, gradually melting away the power of the demonic will. Damned brat, are you forcing me to perish together with you? The Exalt Tao Defiance Devil Intent body sensed that his strength was being melted away, and he was infuriated and went mad. He'd even transformed into a savage ancient being. A ferocious beast. Even though this ferocious beast wasn't very large, its sharp fangs and ferocious gaze caused others to be unable to help but feel terrified. This was the true appearance of a terrifying devil insect from the ancient times. Compared to the devil insect from before, it was much larger and more ferocious. It was much larger. This is an ancient god-slaying devil insect? Yang Hongwu opened his eyes wide. Could it be that the Exalt Tao Defiance true body is an ancient god-slaying devil insect? Yang Hongwu was shocked when he thought up to this point. Although the demonic thoughts of a practitioner were ever-changing, under critical circumstances, they would change into their original appearance. Even if there were some changes, it would not change too much. The demonic insect in front of them was an ancient god-slaying demonic insect, a type of god-slaying demonic insect. Devil insects were the sworn enemies of the ancient gods. At this moment, more and more memories appeared in Yang Hongwu's mind. These were the memories of the ancient gods. Moreover, his memories towards the myriad of worlds in the universe grew clearer and clearer. It turned out that the so-called myriad realms was the myriad realms formed after the collapse of the ancient Tao domain. Currently, the myriad realms had grown to an extremely powerful state. When the myriad of worlds had just been formed, an ancient door had appeared after the collapse of the Tao domain, and this ancient door was the creation gate. According to rumor, one could enter the ancient god domain through the creation gate, and the ancient god domain was the residence of the ancient gods who controlled the grand Daos of the universe. If you want to chat about the Nine Heavens Divine Dragon technique with more like-minded people, follow me on WeChat. Chat about life and find friends. Chapter 2088. The sudden appearance of these memories made Yang Hongwu more and more worried. The awakening of the memories in his body meant that his strength was also awakening. Once his memories and strength were completely awakened, if he was not strong enough, then he would be replaced by him. This was something that Yang Hongwu was not willing to face. However, Yang Hongwu couldn't be bothered about all of that right now. The most important matter at hand was how to deal with the devil intent of these Exalt Tao Defiance. This is, however, the ancient god-slaying demonic bug was an existence that could even kill the ancient gods. In Yang Hongwu's awakened memories, the realm above Tao Lord was the Great Path Realm, the Tao Master Realm. All the ancient gods were at the Tao Master Realm and were collectively known as ancient divine spirits. Their strength was incomparably strong, but the ancient god-slaying devil insects fed on ancient god spirits, their strength was evident. Only yes, the god-slaying demon bug's strength was far from its peak. It was not even 1/10,000th of its peak strength. If it was at its peak, who could be its opponent? Of course, if it was really that formidable, then those experts at the Grand Tao Realm or the Tao Exalt Realm would definitely not allow the devil intent of the Exalt Defiance to appear. Of course, the ancient god-slaying demon bug was not without weaknesses. Its weakness was its eyes. If one could penetrate its eyes, one would be able to break the ancient god-slaying demon bug's body. At this time, Yang Hongwu's thoughts moved as a longbow appeared in his hand. This longbow was condensed from the power of thunder. Yang Hongwu pulled the longbow, and the longbow was drawn into a full moon shape. The arrow on the longbow was transformed from Yang Hongwu's life seal. This was Yang Hongwu's most powerful treasure. Go! At Yang Hongwu's command, the arrow transformed from the life seal shot toward the god-slaying demon bug like a bolt of lightning. A beam of light exploded, and the body of the god-slaying demon bug began to crumble. This strike had consumed 90% of Yang Hongwu's strength. This strike had shattered the god-slaying demon bug's body. With the demonic will destroyed, the Dharma Eye of Annihilation was once again under Yang Hongwu's control. Yang Hongwu took a deep breath and came out of the deployment spell. He discovered that Zi Xintong was fighting against many strong cultivators of Shuayu's highland mountain. Zi Xintong, get out of the way. I don't want to be enemies with the Devil region. This is the Snowy Highlands. If you don't get out of the way, I'll kill you as well, said a strong cultivator from Shuayu coldly. That person was wearing a snow-white robe. His eyebrows were snow-white and his face was rosy. He looked like a strong cultivator, like an ancient god. That's right. Get out of the way, or we'll attack. Although the demon region is strong, you're just one person. If all of us from the Snowy Highlands attack you together, you'll die, another cultivator from the Snowy Highlands said. Kill me? Zi Xintong snorted coldly. You're not strong enough. I advise you to get out of the way. Otherwise, I'll start a massacre. If worst comes to worst, I'll open the passage to the Devil region. At that time, the Snowy Highlands will fall under the iron hooves of the Devil region. You're so stubborn. You're courting death. Humph. Zi Xintong snorted coldly and punched out. The domineering power shattered the entire space. The people from the Snowy Highlands were instantly pushed back. I said that no one is allowed to enter this place. Anyone who dares to enter will die. The strongest cultivator at the front was killed by Zi Xintong. Although he hadn't reached the Dao Lord realm, he was still a peak half-step Dao Lord. However, he was killed by a single punch. She was killing the chicken to warn the monkey. To Zi Xintong, this punch didn't consume much energy. However, the strong cultivators from the Snowy Highlands were shocked. This was because that punch had first destroyed their defensive barrier and then killed one of them. This kind of power was too strong. The leading cultivator narrowed his eyes and looked at Zi Xintong with a serious expression. However, they didn't want to give up. After all, the place Zi Xintong was guarding must have a supreme treasure. This supreme treasure was very important to them. It was also possible that this treasure was the key to the Devil region's attack on the Snowy Highlands. The Snowy Highlands had an extremely close relationship with the God region. However, they were also independent of the God region. The master of the Devil region, Zi Tian, had tried to take over the Snowy Highlands but failed. This caused the Snowy Highlands and the Devil region to be in a very delicate situation. In fact, they knew that it wasn't that the master of the Devil region, Zi Tian, couldn't take over the Snowy Highlands. It was that Zi Tian didn't want to pay a huge price to take over the Snowy Highlands. Although the Snowy Highlands were guarded by strong cultivators and had the power of the Patriarch, they weren't invincible. If Zi Tian was willing to pay a huge price, the Snowy Highlands wouldn't be able to resist. It seems that you really think that you are invincible. The Devil region? So what if you are from the Devil region? Even if we kill you, the master of the Devil region won't necessarily fight to the death with us. Then, he waved his hand. Let's go. Let's kill the princess of the Devil region. If we can capture her alive, it would be even better. We can use this opportunity to threaten the master of the Devil region. You won't have the chance. At this moment, Yang Hongwu appeared. He looked at the experts of the Snow Highland Plateau and sneered. These experts of the Snow Highland Plateau weren't very strong. If it had been in the past, Yang Hongwu wouldn't have dared to act like this. But now, his strength had increased tremendously and he had reached the sovereign realm. With his current sovereign realm cultivation, he was able to contend against Tao lords. Moreover, he was even stronger after setting up the formation. "Little brother, please show mercy." When Yang Hanwu was about to kill, a loud and clear voice came from afar. An ancient mountain appeared in front of everyone. It was a spirit mountain in the snow region. It was ethereal and the voice seemed to be right next to everyone's ears. "Come." This person was very strong. "Snowy Peak Mountain. That's Taoist Chuesong." Zi Xintong narrowed her eyes and explained to Yang Hanwu. "I didn't think that your luck would be so good. Taoist Chuesong has appeared. It seems that he has come for the experts of the snowy highlands. I didn't even have to work hard." Yang Hanwu nodded. This was good news for him. After all, he had come to the snowy highlands to find Taoist Chuesong. Don't let your guard down. The opponent is very strong. Even if you and I join forces, we may not be a match for him. Zi Xintong said seriously. Chapter 2089. Senior, I can spare them, but you have to do me a small favor. Yang Hanwu looked at Taoist Chuesong. He didn't sense a trace of aura from Taoist Chuesong, which proved that Taoist Chuesong was very strong indeed. By how could someone who he couldn't sense a trace of aura not be strong? After all, his perception was top-notch. He could even sense Zhiga's aura. Of course, that was only Zhiga's incarnation and not Zhiga's true body. Zhiga was probably an existence that surpassed the Tao Lord realm. Even if Taoist Chuesong hadn't reached the Tao Lord realm, he was at least a half-step Tao Lord. Otherwise, Taoist Chuesong wouldn't be so strong. Taoist Chuesong's true body was slightly stronger than the incarnations of the Tao Defiance. However, Taoist Chuesong didn't dare to attack the incarnations of the Tao Defiance because he knew how terrifying and strong the Tao Defiance were. If even an incarnation was so strong, then the true body was naturally not someone he could afford to offend. Snow Taoist Song knew how terrifying strong cultivators were. Even though he was the strongest cultivator in the Shuiyu Plateau, the Shuiyu Plateau was a place of inheritance. He couldn't obtain the inheritance, but he didn't dare to destroy the Shuiyu Plateau. That was why he was able to protect the Shuiyu Plateau. Taoist Chuesong was slightly displeased that Yang Hanwu dared to talk about conditions with him. However, it only lasted for a moment. After all, he was a peak Tao Lord and was only a step away from breaking through the bottleneck. He would have perished a long time ago if he didn't have such shrewdness. Taoist Chuesong looked at Yang Hanwu and said, "Little brother, tell me what you want. I'll agree if I can accomplish it. I just want you to help me find a few people." Yang Hanwu looked at Taoist Chuesong and said. Taoist Chuesong wasn't easy to deal with. Even though the displeasure in his eyes only lasted for a moment and ordinary people couldn't catch it, it couldn't escape Yang Hongwu's eyes. After all, Yang Hongwu's perception wasn't something ordinary people could achieve. As a result, Yang Hanwu noticed Taoist Chuesong's displeasure. Of course, everyone knew this. After all, a brat, an early ruler that no one had ever met, dared to act so impudently in front of a peak Tao Lord. Anyone else would have been enraged. Fortunately, Taoist Chuesong was well-mannered and was able to suppress his anger. If it were anyone else, they probably would have killed the brat on the spot. Actually, it was the same for Taoist Chuesong. However, he was able to discern that Yang Hanwu wasn't simple at all. Others might not be aware, but he was very clearly aware that Yang Hanwu had even killed the clone of an Exalt Tao Defiant. So, who was the Exalt Tao Defiant? He couldn't be any more clearly aware that even though the clone of the Exalt Tao Defiant was only at the initial stage of the Tao Monarch realm and didn't possess a very formidable combat strength, so he could still kill it. However, it was only a clone of the Exalt Tao Defiant in the end. Once he killed the clone, it was equivalent to offending the Exalt Tao Defiant's main body. Once the Exalt Tao Defiant's main body descended here, then he wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Inverse, the Exalt Tao Defiant wasn't a cultivator at the Tao Monarch realm like him. The Exalt Tao Defiant was an existence that surpassed the Tao Monarch realm and was a supreme existence. Once the Exalt Tao Defiant's consciousness descended here, then Taoist Xuesong wouldn't be a match for the Exalt Tao Defiant. He would be able to survive if that Exalt Tao Defiant on snowy highlands was willing to lend him a hand. But if that Exalt Tao Defiant wasn't willing to protect him, then only death would await him no matter how formidable he was. It was exactly because Yang Hanwu had dared to act so presumptuously and kill the clone of the Exalt Tao Defiant that he wasn't willing to offend Yang Hanwu. After all, who knew where this kid came from? Moreover, there was a strand of domineering energy within Yang Hanwu, and if that energy were to erupt, then it would be an extremely huge blow to him. Even though he could resist it, he would be heavily injured. In his opinion, it wasn't worth it at all. It was exactly because he was so cautious that he was able to attain his current level of cultivation. Otherwise, how could he possess the name of Taoist Xuesong? "Who are you looking for?" asked Taoist Xuesong. "Senior, your strength is extraordinary, and your ability in divination is unparalleled in the world. It's difficult to find someone in the entire universe. I presume you should be able to divine it, right?" Yang Hanwu gazed at Taoist Xuesong as he spoke. Since Taoist Xuesong's strength was so formidable, then it was probably pointless to ask Taoist Xuesong to divine it. Taoist Xuesong's brows knit together slightly when he heard this. This kid really doesn't give me any face at all, and it made the flames of rage in his heart want to flare up. However, he restrained it in the end. Clang! His expression changed when he was about to make a divination. "Young brother, I'm afraid I'm unable to fulfill your request," said Taoist Xuesong. Taoist Xuesong didn't expect that he couldn't divine anything about Yang Hanwu. He used a secret technique to divine Yang Hanwu, but discovered that Yang Hanwu was shrouded in mist. He seemed to be a person of the void of destiny, not in the universe. He seemed to be an existence that surpassed the creation realm. How could this be possible? If the other party's strength had surpassed his own and reached the level of the Great Path, it would have been normal for the other party to use his powerful cultivation to shield the trajectory of his own fate. However, the other party's cultivation had obviously not reached that level, yet he was unable to capture the other party's aura. Even the people around him could not be divined. That was terrifying. Could it be? For someone to be able to affect the trajectory of his destiny, how powerful was that? In fact, there were only a few possibilities for someone to be able to grasp the trajectory of his destiny. The first was that they were extremely powerful, and the second was that their destiny was extremely terrifying. They were existences that transcended the myriad of worlds, and transcended creation. Either of the two situations was not something he could deal with. "Senior, are you joking with me?" Yang Hanwu gazed at Taoist Xuesong. Taoist Xuesong's strength had actually gone back on his word, and that made Yang Hanwu feel extremely displeased. However, if Taoist Xuesong was really unwilling to help him, then there was nothing he could do. After all, he couldn't deal with Taoist Xuesong even if he wanted to. Not to mention that Yang Hanwu had sensed danger from outside the God domain. Yang Hanwu couldn't think of any other danger from outside the God domain, but it was definitely related to the exalted Tao Defiance. After all, he'd only offended the exalted Tao Defiance in the God domain. If it was Zetian, then he was still in the Devil domain, and the Devil domain was a part of the God domain. So, the only possibility of danger from outside the God domain was the exalted Tao Defiance. Chapter 2090. With senior strength, you can't even fulfill such a simple request? I don't believe you. Yang Hanwu looked at Taoist Xuesong and said. Taoist Xuesong was extremely strong. Although he hadn't reached that level, it was undeniable that he was a top-notch expert in terms of divination. It could be said that in the deity domain, there was no one who could be mentioned in the same breath as him. Taoist Xuesong didn't want to help him because he had other reasons. Perhaps it was because helping him was too risky and he didn't want to take the risk. Yang Hanwu could sense that the threat from the extraterritorial region was getting stronger and stronger. This was going to be troublesome. Could it be that Taoist Shuesong had also divined that he would be in trouble? If that was the case, it was normal that he didn't dare to help him. However, if that was the case, Taoist Shuesong would be unyielding. This was something that Yang Hongwu didn't understand. Perhaps Taoist Shuesong didn't want to offend him. However, no matter what, it was impossible for him to let these guys off so easily. How could it be so easy? Senior, are you looking down on me and not willing to help? Yang Hongwu looked at Taoist Shuesong and said. Although Taoist Shuesong was strong, Yang Hongwu wasn't afraid. After all, he still had a trump card to protect himself. This was the common people's divine domain. Yang Hongwu could faintly feel a powerful force. This force would be a great help to him. This was why Yang Hongwu was so confident at this moment. The reason. Yang Hongwu's words made Taoist Shuesong very unhappy. After all, he was being looked down on by a mere sovereign realm expert. Naturally, he wasn't happy. No matter what, he was an expert at the peak of the Tao Lord realm. He was only one step away from becoming a legendary Tao master. Even though he hadn't reached that level yet, in the Shuiyu Plateau and even in the deity domain, his status was extremely high. Nobody dared to talk to him like that. Even the leaders of the deity domain had to be polite to him. Even some of the weaker Tao lords had to lower their heads and address him as senior before him. They would treat him with respect and wouldn't dare to act presumptuously. However, this kid before him didn't give him any face at all. How could he not be angry? Are you questioning me? Taoist Shuesong said angrily. After all, this was related to his face. For a powerhouse at his level, face was very important. Heavens, this kid is in trouble. He actually didn't give Taoist Shuesong any face. How strong is Taoist Shuesong? How could a mere early-stage ruler kid resist him? No, that brat can't be invited. Since he dares to act so impudently in front of Taoist Shuesong, he must have a powerful backer. In my opinion, this guy's strength is definitely not limited to this. I'm afraid his strength has already reached an inconceivable level. He's pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger, another person said. At this moment, many powerhouses from the deity plane had entered the snowy highlands. They were all talking about Yang Hongwu. Many powerhouses knew of Taoist Shuesong's great name. After all, he was a peerless powerhouse. There was no need to doubt his strength. However, a mere early-stage ruler cultivator dared to act so presumptuously in front of Taoist Shuesong. This was enough to prove that he wasn't weak at all. I wouldn't dare. Yang Hongwu shook his head. However, this one believes that Senior's strength is outstanding. This small matter shouldn't be able to stop Senior. However, Senior isn't willing to help Junior. If that's the case, Senior wouldn't have agreed to my conditions earlier. Brat, don't be too arrogant. So what if Senior isn't willing to help you? Who do you think you are? How dare you question Senior Shuesong? You're courting death. Do you know that? One of the powerhouses couldn't stand it any longer and snarled at Yang Hongwu. He scolded. Yang Hongwu's eyes flashed with a cold light. Are you courting death? Yang Hongwu waved his hand and shot out a bolt of lightning. This bolt of lightning transformed into a lightning spear that arrived in front of the man in the blink of an eye. When the man saw this, he turned pale with fright. He wanted to dodge, but it was too late. At this moment, Taoist Shuesong made his move. A beam of snowy light shot out from his hand and blocked Yang Hongwu's lightning attack. The man's face turned ashen. If Taoist Shuesong hadn't intervened, he would have been a dead man by now. At this moment, everyone realized that Yang Hongwu's strength was truly formidable. It was far from the cultivation of an early-stage sovereign. Let alone an early-stage sovereign, even an early-stage Tao Lord might not be able to match up to this level of strength. Yang Hongwu, don't go too far. Taoist Shuesong was furious. He glared at Yang Hongwu and said, although the power in your body is domineering, if I attack, you won't have it easy either. Hearing Yang Hongwu's words, the crowd was stunned. It turned out that this kid really did have a powerful backer. Even Taoist Shuesong admitted that this person was incomparably strong. Taoist Shuesong wasn't a match for him. Strong, really too strong. Too strong. This was Taoist Shuesong, one of the top experts in the God domain. Senior, you must be joking. I just want you to help me find someone. With your ability, how can you not find someone? Yang Hanwu continued, of course, if Senior is unwilling, then there's nothing I can do about it. As for these people, they can only stay. Yang Hanwu looked at the crowd and said, these people came to cause trouble for me. If I let them go like this, wouldn't they think I'm easy to bully? I'm willing to give you face, Senior. But if you're willing to give me a way out, then you have to give me a way out. Yang Hongwu's tone was extremely unyielding when he spoke these words. Kid, it looks like you really aren't willing to give me face. You're courting death. No matter how good Taoist Shuesong's self-restraint was, he still couldn't help but erupt with a powerful aura. He raised his hand, and a powerful force blasted towards Yang Hanwu. However, it just so happened that a rift appeared in space right at this moment, and it blocked the path between Yang Hanwu and Taoist Shuesong. Taoist Shuesong's attack instantly struck a figure that emerged from the rift in space. The appearance of this figure caused Taoist Shuesong's expression to change drastically. Yang Hanwu had a solemn expression on his face as well. This person's aura is exactly the same as the Exalt Tao Defiance. Has the Exalt Tao Defiance true body arrived? He's probably here to cause trouble for me. Yang Hanwu took a deep breath, suppressed the emotions in his heart, and stared at the figure that emerged from the rift in space. That person's aura was extremely terrifying. The entire snowy highlands seemed as if it was about to collapse before this terrifying aura. Mobile users, please browse. If you want to chat about the 9 Heavens Divine Dragon technique with more like-minded people, please follow me on WeChat. Chat about life, find friends. Chapter 2091. Are you the one who attacked me? The person's face couldn't be seen clearly, but his aura was extremely terrifying. His entire person seemed to be shrouded in a dense fog, making people unable to see him clearly. However, his aura was so terrifying that anyone would have to submit under this terrifying pressure. Almost no one dared to raise their head to look at the person who had just arrived. At this moment, Taoist Shuesong's face was ashen. Yang Hanwu managed to dodge his attack and it landed on the newcomer's body. This person's aura was too terrifying for him to deal with. Dear expert, I didn't do it on purpose. This time, it's all because of this brat. Even though Shuesong Taoist was wary of this unknown expert, it didn't mean that he didn't have the courage to speak. It was just that he didn't want to face such an expert. Even if he wasn't a match, he could still escape if necessary. How dare you call yourself master in front of me? You're courting death. As soon as Taoist Shuesong finished speaking, the other party was enraged. He waved his hand and a terrifying light shot towards Taoist Shuesong. It was like an ancient killing sword that wanted to kill Taoist Shuesong in one fell swoop. Damn it, it's not that easy to kill me. I respect you because you're a supreme expert, so I don't want to oppose you. However, you don't put me in your eyes. I'm not someone to be trifled with. Taoist Shuesong was furious. He didn't expect this guy to kill him without a word. He was like an ant that could be crushed and killed at will. Taoist Shuesong took out his ultimate life treasure. It was a fate disk that could calculate the myriad worlds. As long as he was strong enough, he could calculate everything he wanted to know. It wasn't just a simple calculation tool. Its defensive and offensive capabilities were unparalleled in this world. After the fate disk appeared, it instantly enlarged and stood in front of Taoist Shuesong. It was like a huge mountain that blocked the terrifying attack of the newcomer. When the powerful force collided with the fate disk, a terrifying shockwave exploded. The weaker cultivators in the surroundings were instantly killed by the shockwave. Some of them were too weak and their bodies were directly turned into ashes. Run! Everyone, run! Otherwise, you'll die. The weaker warriors were running for their lives. At this moment, they couldn't care less. The shockwaves from the battle between the two peerless experts were too terrifying. It wasn't something that they could withstand. If this continued, they were afraid that this side of the world would be destroyed and they would all die here. In an instant, the entire snowy highland was in chaos. Countless cultivators died miserably. In an instant, the originally tranquil snowy highland was covered in blood and turned into an azure sea of blood. Yang Hanwu took a deep breath. He was stunned. He had never imagined that such a situation would occur. However, Yang Hanwu knew that it was a good opportunity for him to escape from such a battle. However, when Yang Hanwu was about to leave, he discovered that a powerful aura had locked onto him. He couldn't escape this aura at all. Even the space around him was locked. It seemed like that person wanted to deal with Taoist Xuesong first before attacking him. This guy doesn't even put me in his eyes at all. A venerable Tao Defiant is worthy of being a venerable Tao Defiant. His strength is absolutely formidable. Yang Hanwu, are you still not going to attack? Are you waiting for death? At this moment, Taoist Xuesong's voice resounded before Yang Hanwu could speak. All right. Yang Hanwu took a deep breath. Since he knew that this person's aura had locked onto him, then this battle was unavoidable. Since it couldn't be avoided, then he had no choice but to fight. Yang Hanwu and Zi Xintong exchanged glances and saw the battle intent in each other's eyes. Since this battle was unavoidable, then they had no choice but to fight. Yang Hanwu wanted to give it a try and see if he could fight the Exalt Tao Defiance or the subordinates of the Exalt Tao Defiance. Yang Hanwu wasn't sure if this person who was fighting Taoist Xuesong was the Venerable Tao Defiant. However, this person's aura was very similar to the Venerable Tao Defiance, and it could be said that they came from the same source. However, he didn't know if this person was the Venerable Tao Defiant. After all, the strength of the Venerable Tao Defiant's true body shouldn't be limited to this. If this person was the true body of the Venerable Tao Defiant, then how could Taoist Xuesong possibly have the strength to fight back? The gap between Taoist monarchs and Taoist monarchs wasn't just this. It was an insurmountable gap. It was just like the gap between rulers and Taoist monarchs. Everyone below Taoist monarchs were ants. Even Yang Hanwu was the same. However, he was a little special. Such situations were extremely rare. Besides Yang Hanwu himself, no one else could fight someone who was an entire realm above them. All of you are too weak. You're no match for me. You're courting death by going against me. I could have let all of you live a little longer, but you overestimated yourselves. Since you want to court death, then I'll fulfill your wish. After saying that, that person groaned and turned into a gigantic giant. The moment his cosmic body appeared, the entire Shuiyu Plateau started to shake as if it was about to collapse. In front of his gigantic body, everyone was like an ant. Yang Hongwu, Zi Xintong, and Taoist Xuesong wanted to activate their cosmic images as well. However, they were shocked to find that the laws of this region seemed to have been restricted. They couldn't activate their avatars. Damn it! The laws of this region have been changed. Taoist Xuesong's expression changed drastically. Now, we can only use our full strength to break the sealed laws of this region. Only then will we have a chance at survival. Otherwise, only death will await us. Taoist Xuesong hated Yang Hanwu to the bone. However, this was a matter of life and death, so he had no choice but to join forces with Yang Hanwu and abandon their former enmity to face such a terrifying enemy. Futile, everything is futile. This space has already been incorporated into my inner world. Unless you can defeat me, the laws of this space are all under my control. You are all ants in my inner world. Here, I am an invincible existence, the person said loudly. Who the hell are you? A venerable Tao Defiant? Asked Yang Hanwu. The person said. I'm just a minor official under your excellency's command. Chapter 2092. I'll provide you with a wonderful novel to read. A minor official under his command? Yang Hanwu took a deep breath. Isn't this a little too terrifying? He's merely a minor official under the command of the Exalt Dao Defiance, yet his strength is already so terrifying. So, how terrifying would the Exalt Dao Defiance main body be? Are you joking? Yang Hanwu gazed at him and said, a minor official under his command? I don't believe it. I admit that the Exalt Dao Defiance strength is formidable, but a minor official under his command wouldn't be that terrifying. Little fellow, you'll find out once you've grown. You've killed one of my lord's clones and destroyed his devilish will, and that's quite a huge help to my lord. My lord's devilish will can't be destroyed by others, and even my lord himself is unable to accomplish that. Actually, my lord has to thank you. However, you've killed one of my lord's clones in the end. Even though it was only a clone, it represented my lord's will, and you've offended my lord as well. The Exalt Dao Defiance gazed at Yang Hanwu as he spoke. Move aside. I'll make a fuss about it with you once I kill this fellow who dared to attack me. As he spoke, the Exalt Dao Defiance launched another attack at Daoist Xuesong, and he seemed like an illusion that instantly vanished on the spot. Even Yang Hanwu, who possessed formidable eye techniques, wasn't able to see him clearly. Daoist Xuesong didn't have the time to speak, and he could only defend himself. He was actually unable to fight back against the Exalt Dao Defiance attacks and could only defend himself passively. This clearly showed that the Exalt Dao Defiance strength was truly too formidable. After all, the Exalt Dao Defiance were at the peak of the Dao Monarch realm. Even though they hadn't broken through the restraints of the Dao Monarch realm and entered the Grand Dao realm, they could be said to be half a step into that realm. However, it just so happened that they couldn't even withstand a single blow from the Exalt Dao Defiance. Yang Hanwu, do you really believe him? All of you will die once he kills me. His words can't be trusted. We'll only have a chance at survival if we join forces. Do you understand? At this moment, Daoist Xuesong was in imminent danger. If this continued, he would die here. He had no choice but to ask Yang Hanwu for help again. Yang Hanwu also knew that this person's strength was too terrifying. It didn't matter whether this person was telling the truth or not, Daoist Xuesong's words were not wrong. After all, if this person really wanted to harm Yang Hanwu, he would be able to kill Yang Hanwu. By the time he killed Daoist Xuesong, it would already be too late for him to fight back. Even though both his and Zi Xintong's strengths weren't bad and could go against Daoist Xuesong, he had no choice but to admit that their joint forces might not be able to gain any advantage against a minor official of the Exalt Dao Defiant. This was something Yang Hanwu was unwilling to do. As the saying goes, a gentleman does not stand under a dangerous wall. Any potential threat must be eliminated. This was the most correct way to deal with things. Kill! Yang Hanwu and Zi Xintong glanced at each other before joining forces again to attack the Exalt Dao Defiant. This time, Yang Hanwu didn't hold back at all. He immediately used his strongest attack, the Life Seal. With a furious roar, a seal as large as a mountain smashed towards the Exalt Dao Defiant. Zi Xintong also unleashed her most powerful attack. Daoist Xuesong heaved a sigh of relief when he saw this scene. At the same time, he also unleashed his most powerful attack. Even though Daoist Xuesong was being suppressed, he was still in the snowy plateau. This was his lair. Yang Hanwu and Zi Xintong had both used their trump cards. It could be said that they had launched their most powerful attacks. Naturally, Daoist Xuesong couldn't hold back any longer. If he continued to hold back, then he was afraid that he would lose his life. If he continued to hide, he would have no chance. The three of them knew that they only had one chance to defeat this powerful enemy. If they missed this opportunity, then they wouldn't have another chance. I've said that everything is futile. Even though your strength is not bad, you're still not my match. The Exalt Dao Defiant shouted. With a wave of his hand, an intense ray of light appeared above his hands. This ray of light burst out like a huge disc. However, Yang Hanwu and the other two knew that this disc carried a terrifying aura. It was a power that could destroy a world. It could be said that it was a world, a universe. This tyrannical power rushed forth and collided with the strongest attack that the three of them had unleashed together. There was no terrifying explosion during the collision. What surprised Yang Hanwu and the others was that the disc actually merged with their attacks and devoured their terrifying power. This was too terrifying. Their strongest attack was actually useless in front of this Exalt Dao Defiant. Impossible. This is impossible. Taoist Xuesong muttered, even a Grand Dao realm expert wouldn't be able to resist our joint attack with such ease. This is definitely fake. Yang Hanwu didn't dare believe it as well. Even though this fellow's strength was extremely formidable and terrifying, what he saw before him was a little too absurd. Their attacks were so weak before him that they couldn't even scratch an itch for him. Despair. This truly made them feel despair. His strength was truly too terrifying and too formidable. No, something's not right. At this moment, Yang Hanwu suddenly sensed a strand of cool energy within his dantian. Yang Hanwu activated his eye technique once more. The cool energy within his dantian entered his Dharma eye of obliteration. At this moment, Yang Hanwu saw through everything. There was no such thing as a minor official of the Exalt Dao Defiant. There was no such thing as a disc. This was Xuesong Mountain. There was only one person in front of him, and it was Taoist Xuesong. Yang Hanwu took a deep breath. Everything he had seen before was actually an illusion. This was truly too shocking. Everything he had just experienced was an illusion. Everyone who had been killed before was still alive and well. There were only the experts of the Snowy Plateau and Taoist Xuesong in front of him. On his side, only Zi Xintong was by his side. Yang Hanwu, you have to be careful. Taoist Xuesong is extremely powerful. Don't underestimate him. Zi Xintong said. Yang Hanwu came back to his senses. The shock in his heart was considerable. He smiled bitterly when he heard Zi Xintong's words. The battle had already begun, and he was already at a disadvantage. He had already fallen into Taoist Xuesong's illusion, and it was an illusion that targeted only him. Taoist Xuesong's strength was unimaginable. It was truly unimaginable. Taoist Xuesong was too powerful. I know. Yang Hanwu nodded and looked at Taoist Xuesong. Senior, you're truly skilled. This junior admires you. You want to talk about the Nine Heavens Divine Dragon technique with more like-minded people. You want to follow advanced reading literature on WeChat. Chat about life, find a confidant. Chapter 2093. I'll provide you with a wonderful novel to read. Yang Hanwu had really thought that the subordinates of the Exalt Dao Defiance had arrived, but he'd never imagined that it was actually Taoist Xuesong's spiritual attack that had caused him to hallucinate. Taoist Xuesong's strength really is formidable. Taoist Xuesong had unknowingly caused him to fall into his own hallucinations. Taoist Xuesong's strength was the strongest amongst all the people he'd encountered. Of course, this was referring to the real body. After all, experts like Zhiga and the Thunder Dao Lord who had appeared before had reached an unknown level of strength. Just a mere incarnation, or rather, a mere thought, was already so powerful. Because Taoist Xuesong couldn't compare to them at all. While Taoist Xuesong was formidable, his strength was far from reaching the level of being able to make Chen Shi fear him with a single thought. Taoist Xuesong hadn't reached that level yet, but he wasn't easy to deal with. At the very least, Chen Shi really wasn't confident in his ability to deal with Taoist Xuesong by himself. After all, Taoist Xuesong was able to cause Chen Shi to fall into an illusion without even realizing it. This obviously showed that Taoist Xuesong's strength was sufficiently formidable. If Chen Shi wanted to deal with Taoist Xuesong, then he had to deal with Taoist Xuesong's unfathomable spiritual attack. Taoist Xuesong gazed at Yang Hanwu and said, "Little brother, you aren't weak either. You should leave, otherwise, trouble will come. Senior, I've come to look for you. I hope that you can help me with a small matter." Yang Hanwu gazed at Taoist Xuesong and said, "So long as you're willing, then no matter what you ask of me, I'll definitely do my best to accomplish it. I'll do it. I know what you're thinking, but I can't help you. Moreover, you probably won't be able to leave if you don't leave now, said Taoist Xuesong Sr. Yang Hanwu was about to say something when Taoist Xuesong tossed something over with a wave of his hand. Yang Hanwu stretched out his hand to catch it, and then Taoist Xuesong led everyone from Snowy Highlands to vanish on the spot. Yang Hanwu felt extremely helpless as he watched them vanish. Never had he imagined that such a situation. Taoist Xuesong's strength was not something he could deal with. In front of him, he had disappeared so easily. There was no trace of him at all. However, Yang Hanwu understood why Taoist Xuesong wanted him to leave as soon as possible. At this moment, a strand of formidable aura had locked onto him, and it was the aura of the Exalt Tao Defiant that he'd killed just now. The Exalt Tao Defiance had appeared. Perhaps it wasn't the true body of the Exalt Tao Defiant, but there was no doubt that the Exalt Tao Defiant's strength was formidable. His true body probably wouldn't make an appearance here, and it was probably just a strand of the Exalt Tao Defiant's thoughts. Let's go. Yang Hanwu looked at Zi Xintong and called out to her. Then, he pulled Zi Xintong up and activated the void teleportation secret technique to leave the space. In the next moment, Yang Hanwu was teleported out of the Snowy Highlands and back to the Purple Mountain. Not good. Zi Xintong's expression changed. The enemy is too strong. They've already locked onto us. We can't escape. Yang Hanwu also noticed that he and Zi Xintong wanted to escape, but they couldn't. Their auras had been locked onto. No matter where they went, the enemy would be able to sense them. Yang Hanwu felt helpless because even if he activated the Red Lotus karmic flames, he wouldn't be able to eliminate that strand of aura. That meant that he really couldn't escape that fellow's pursuit. Since he couldn't avoid it, then he had no choice but to fight it. Since we can't escape, then we can only fight. Yang Hanwu's eyes narrowed while his battle intent soared. Even though he'd been suppressed by Taoist Xuesong just now, it didn't mean that he didn't have any battle intent left. Even though the Exalt Tao Defiant was terrifying, it wasn't invincible. After all, hadn't the clone of the Exalt Tao Defiant been killed just now? This time, it was a thought, or rather, an incarnation. Even if it was stronger than the previous incarnation and the demonic will, it shouldn't be that much stronger. At the very least, it had to be within the limits of the Divine Realm's laws. If it surpassed the laws of the God Domain, then the God Domain might not be able to endure it. Or perhaps the Grand Daos of the entire God Domain wouldn't allow it to act as it pleased, right? Unless that person's strength had surpassed the Grand Daos of the God Domain and was able to act fearlessly in the God Domain with such formidable strength. No matter what, Yang Hanwu believed that so long as that person's strength hadn't surpassed the Grand Daos of the God Domain, then he still had a chance. If that person's strength had really surpassed the Grand Daos of the God Domain, then he really wouldn't have a chance. Moreover, if that person's strength had really surpassed the Grand Daos of the God Domain, then that person might not make such a fuss about it. After all, he was merely an early-stage ruler right now. He'd just advanced into the ruler realm and wasn't even a Tao Lord yet. If that person's strength had surpassed the Tao Lord realm, then making such a fuss about it with a mere ruler like him, it would be too humiliating. Let's go to the outside world. After all, this is your Violet Mountain. It would be a huge loss for you if it were to be destroyed, said Yang Hanwu. It's fine. Let's do it here. Our chances of victory are a bit higher here. If we can get through this calamity this time, then the benefits should be enough to make up for the loss of my Purple Mountain. However, if we cannot get through this calamity, then everything will be fine. However, if we're unable to overcome it, then everything will be fake, said Zi Xintong. Yang Hanwu nodded at Zi Xintong's words. Both of them seemed like they were facing a formidable enemy when they sensed that aura was growing closer and closer, and they were prepared to attack. In the next moment, a spatial rift appeared in the sky above the Violet Mountain, and then a strand of domineering and mighty aura swept out from within the spatial rift. A figure appeared. This figure was practically dressed exactly the same as the Exalt Tao Defiant from before. However, his bearing and aura were different. The Exalt Thou Defiant? Yan Hanwu gazed at him as he spoke. Little fellow, it was the two of you who killed my clone and obliterated my devil intent? The Exalt Thou Defiant gazed at Yan Hanwu and Zi Xintong while powerful pressure emanated from him. Moreover, this pressure was growing stronger and stronger. Yan Hanwu felt like he was being crushed by an invisible pressure. It was like an invisible mountain was pressing down upon him, and it even made it difficult for him to breathe. This was an unprecedented feeling for Yan Hanwu. Since he could be considered to have attained some success in his cultivation, he'd never encountered such a situation again. Because no one could rely solely on the pressure of their imposing aura to make it difficult for him to breathe. Yan Hanwu stared at the Exalt Thou Defiant while strong fear flickered in his eyes. This was one of the strongest enemies he'd ever encountered. Moreover, this was only a clone. Yan Hanwu suspected that this clone wasn't inferior to Daoist Xuesong's main body from before. Mobile users, please browse. If you want to chat about the Nine Heavens Divine Dragon technique with more like-minded people, please follow me on WeChat. Chat about life and find friends. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.